It's like 2015 again, with Thundurus Incarnate being able to do well at the recent European International Championship after disappearing for so long alongside Gouging Fire and Ting Lu, with a really special defensive Urshifu to make 3rd place at the European International Championship. In fact, there were 2 Thundurus that were able to both top cut, and we are going to be trying out that team and seeing how well it can perform. This Pal9 team with a few different tricks was able to top cut the European International Championship. Let's break down the team. Alright, but let's go over the team and start with the familiar concept that we've seen before. We have Gouging Fire, Chien-Pao, and Dragonite, which is a core that we have seen throughout Regulation F. So Booster Energy does allow Gouging Fire to have a speed boost, which is really solid because that means it's a really fast Pokemon that can outspeed stuff like Scarf Urshifu and go for Breaking Swipe to lower both of the opponent's attack stat on the field while doing some decent chip damage, because even though it's not the strongest move, the same type of attack bonus Breaking Swipe does hurt. We've seen it on Roaring Moon as well. And it is able to do some pretty decent consistent chip damage. And Heat Crash, because Gouging Fire is a very heavy Pokemon, Heat Crash will actually do a lot of damage to like Flutter Mane and more, and you don't want to take recoil on a Pokemon that's kind of wanting to stick around on the field. Howl is the big move here for Gouging Fire. It's able to increase the attack stat of itself and its ally by 1 stage, so you can stack up House to negate Intimidate, and it can really snowball. Fairy Terrestrializations to help out against Raging Bolt, especially like the Calm Mind Raging Bolts, because they won't be able to touch the Gouging Fire that's spamming Howl, which is really important. So that's the reason why. And then we have Protect on the Gouging Fire. And the reason you run Protect over Burning Bulwark is because Burning Bulwark is cool in situational specific matchups, like against opposing like Gouging Fires and maybe like some of the physical attackers like Dragonite and Chien-Pao. But the problem with it is that it doesn't block status moves like Spore and Parting Shot. And that's kind of a big thing, because if you know that you could go for a Spore or Parting Shot, the Gouging Fire can't protect itself. So yeah, that's why Protect is usually used over the Burning Bulwark, and it's the more consistent move of the two, because it also doesn't even burn Urshifu, which is a pretty big one because it just hits through the Burning Bulwark anyway. So you might as well run Protect in most cases. This EV spread allows the Gouging Fire to live 2 Surging Strikes from non-boosted Urshifus and is able to run max speed. You usually want max speed on the Gouging Fire because of the fact that it will be able to outspeed base 90s like Annihilate, but also the fact that it will also be able to, just like against opposing Gouging Fires, you usually want to be at least a faster one in most cases. And then 36 attack is going to be there just for a little bit of extra damage I put as the remainder. The 208 HP as well from the 220 HP investment is also going to be a nice number for grassy terrain recovery. Next Pokemon we have is going to be the Focus Sash Chien-Pao with the Sword of Ruin to lower the defense stat of all Pokemon on the field besides itself, with the Ghost Terra type to help out against fighting moves as well as the Fake Outs and Extreme Speeds, with Ice Spinner, Sucker Punch, Sacred Sword, and Protect. Pretty standard Chien-Pao. It's running Ice Spinner, which is a little bit weaker into like Ogre Ponds or Pokemon with Spiky Shield, but it's kind of necessary because you want to remove terrains on this team because it doesn't have like a Rillaboom, and you want to make sure you can remove the grassy terrain for Ting Lu especially, as well as like any psychic terrain stuff that can help out in that matchup as well. And it's pretty standard Chien-Pao otherwise, but if you look at its EVs, it's a little bit different actually, because it's not running max speed, which is surprising on a Focus Sash Chien-Pao. And the idea behind 20 HP and 52 defense is because it is a pretty decent chance to live the Surging Strikes from Mystic Water Urshifu, because most of the Mystic Water Urshifus are going to be about like 196 attack Adamant Nature usually, and this Chien-Pao pretty much lives it most of the time. It's like 10% chance, or more like 8/9% chance to actually KO the Chien-Pao with this investment. So that's the reason why this Chien-Pao is not running like max attack, max speed. It's so you can live the Surging Strikes, which can be pretty useful, which we saw a trend at EUIC. Then 236 attack with an Adamant Nature gives it the extra stat point in its attack, and the 180 allows you to outspeed the Tornadus with that speed stat, so 196 speed, going to be the perfect remainder investment. Then we have the Loaded Dice Dragonite with the Multi-Scale ability, which reduces any damage that Dragonite takes when at full HP by half, with the Steel Terra type, just really useful against like Flutter Mane especially, and any Dragon type moves, and you can go for the Iron Head into the Fairy Terrestrializations, which is pretty nice because Scale Shot, really strong move. Loaded Dice, of course, paired with Scale Shot, allows Scale Shot to always get at least a 4-hitter, potentially a 5-hitter, increases the speed, lowers the defense, really strong attack, extreme speed for priority, Iron Head to be able to hit those Fairy types, and then Protect. And yeah, the only thing is that we see multi-scale on the Dragonite over the Inner Focus, and the main reason is we normally see like Inner Focus or Multi-Scale. Inner Focus is better against, like, especially with the lead Dragonite, but this Dragonite is usually kept in the back in a lot of game plans, so a Multi-Scale makes sense because it makes it hard to actually break through this Dragonite in the end game, which is really solid. The EV spread here, gonna go with max speed with the Dragonite with Adamant Nature, because in case you fight like other Dragonites or you face like a Regidrago, at least, or modest Regidrago, you can potentially speed tie them. 204 with the Adamant Nature gives you the extra stat point, its attack, and then the remainder to special defense in case you absolutely need it. Yeah, it can be helpful because you have Vessel Ruin, you also have the Breaking Swipe on the Gouging Fire. It makes it so it's harder to actually deal damage to this Dragonite, and Loaded Dice hits really hard. And imagine with a Howl boost from the Gouging Fire or next to Sword of Ruin Qianpao, or potentially both, this Dragonite can do a lot, and I mean a lot of damage, especially when set up in the mid game in a really nice scenario. Next Pokemon we have is going to be the Clear Amulet Tinglu with the Vessel Ruin and the Poison Terra type with Earthquake, Drill Chop, Terra Blast, and Protect. We've actually seen this Tinglu used before, especially like in an online tournament where it was able to get, like, I think it was top 16. It was with like Sinistra with like Hospitality paired with like this combination. But yeah, it's kind of appeared once again, and Clear Amulet Tinglu is pretty strong because of the fact that it is able to be immune to the Intimidates, which is really solid, and just dish out some pretty good damage. Vessel Ruin is also really nice because it lowers the special attack damage output of all Pokemon on the field besides the Tinglu. But with this team where it's mostly physical attackers, it's very much appreciated. It allows your Pokemon to take damage easier from special attackers like that Flutter Mane, as well as, again, you have Gouging Fire with Breaking Swipe that can handle the physical side. Terra Poison is really strong because it's a great defensive typing against close combat from Urshifus, as well as the fairy type moves from Flutter Mane especially. You run Earthquake because it is paired nicely with the Dragonite, and you have Ice Spinner with the Qianpao, so you could go for like Protect with the Qianpao. With the Sword of Ruin, the Earthquake's actually going to do a ton of damage, and also you have two flying types with Dragonite and Thundurus, which is super solid. Drill Chop as your dark type coverage also can block parting shots from Incineroar or Hyper Voices from like random stuff like Primarina or Sylveon, which is nice. Terra Poison, Terra Blast is actually really cool to be able to hit the Terra Fairies like the Raging Bolts that are Terra Fairy, Rillabooms on switch-ins. Yeah, it can be really strong against Terra Grasses as well. And then Protect, of course, to keep itself around. This EV spread does allow it to live like the Terra Water Surging Strikes if the Tinglu doesn't decide to go for a Terrestrialization. It does have some special defense because you're not running Assault Vest, so you kind of still want some special defense for the investment. And 76 attack with an Animator does give you an extra stat point in its attack, while the 12 speed, just a speed creep, I guess like 4 speed Tinglu, I suppose. While the 204 HP does give you some extra recovery from the grassy terrain. So overall, Tinglu can be very nice to help reduce the damage and be a pretty good offensive threat here. Next Pokemon we have is going to be the Safety Goggles Rapid Strike Urshifu with Unseen Fist. Allows it to hit to Protect, Terra Steel, great defensive typing against flying, fairy coverage, and more. Surging Strikes, Close Combat, Aqua Jet Detect, pretty standard Urshifu. And then you have the EV spread, and as you can see, this is a very, very bulky Urshifu. It has 140 attack with an Adamant Nature, 92 HP, 4 defense, 252 special defense, and 20 speed. I'm not exactly sure of the super big details about like the reasoning behind like all of this bulk, but I imagine it's because you have stuff like Thunder Wave with the Thundurus, you might lead it with the Urshifu, and just being able to tank any of the special hits like the Flutter Manes and more. It also probably helps out into Psy Spam especially, which I imagine is probably like another reason why you have this combination, and maybe with Vessel Ruin paired with Tinglu, you're really able to sponge up those attacks. So this Urshifu will pretty much just not go down, and will still do some pretty good damage with the Surging Strikes and close combats, especially next to Howl on the Gouging Fire. You'll still be able to outspeed a good amount of Pokemon thanks to the Thunder Wave support from the Thundurus. You don't really need as much speed with this team because you usually have it with like the Thundurus, or you have like Qianpao Dragonite that's just like faster in general. Safety Goggles is an interesting item on Urshifu, but since this team doesn't exactly have the best answers to Amoonguss, especially a terrestrialized Amoonguss, so having the Safety Goggles so you can ignore the Amoonguss at least with the Urshifu and go for like just go for Surging Strikes and close combats into the partner is really valuable. And yeah, it's just a super defensive Urshifu. The Terra Steel with Safety Goggles just allows it to be pretty defensive in some matchups, especially again Psy Spam, maybe sometimes like against Flutter Mane, like offense stuff. Like it can definitely be able to put in a good amount of work on this team. And it's interesting because we don't really see Urshifu paired with Gouging Fire, but I think it's usually because Amoonguss is generally a big problem for the rest of the core otherwise. But with the safety goggles, it makes a ton of sense here. And the last Pokemon, which we'll see, does help out a bit in that matchup. And that Pokemon is Thundurus Incarnate. Not a Pokemon we commonly see in the format anymore because you have Pokemon like Raging Bolt, but we have seen it here and there before. Covert Cloak makes it pretty annoying because it is immune to any secondary effects like Fake Out Flinches, which is the big one, but also like any stat drops like Icy Wind and more. Prankster for the ability, which means any non-attacking moves is going to have a +1 priority. Water Terastization, just to be able to resist like Surging Strikes from Urshifu, as well as super effective ice coverage and super strong fire coverage with Wall Bolt, Storm, Thunder Wave, Taunt, and Eerie Impulse. So this Thundurus Incarnate going to be more of a support Pokemon on this team. It really does help out against some things, especially like really strong special attackers in matchups you can't really bring Tinglu into. You can go with the Thundurus Incarnate, and you could even lead like Thundurus plus Tinglu and just go for like Eerie Impulse to make up for the fact that you're not a Assault Vest Tinglu. So you really are just able to sponge up the attacks and kind of like build up damage with the Tinglu while they can't really do much. Thunder Wave Speed Control, super nice, paired with the Tinglu, the Urshifu, and the Dragonite, which aren't the fastest Pokemon initially, but that Thunder Wave support does really help out. And Taunt, which is really nice to help shut down like Porygon 2, as well as the ability to just help out against the Amoonguss. And one thing I just remembered actually is that the Thundurus combined with the Urshifu, if you do lead it, which is a plan you lead into like Porygon 2 Ursaluna stuff, is that what's nice about the lead is the Porygon will actually always get an attack boost and not a special attack boost, which makes the matchup a bit easier. So that's also another reason why Urshifu has like a lot of special defense, because it does help out in that matchup. So that's also a pretty big factor here. And the EV spread on this Thundurus, it's really bulky, 244 HP for pretty much near max HP, 164 defense investment, 76 special defense with a calm nature, gives it the extra stat point in special defense, 20 speed because you're able to outspeed again like Adamant Dragonites, the modest Regidragos out there, and you're able to speed creep just a little bit further. For special attack, it has a really high base special attack anyway, and Wall Bolt Storm, really strong electric spread move that is able to just bypass like the Rage Powder and stuff, so you can just spam it and you have a chance to para. Yeah, it can be a pretty annoying Pokemon for some players to deal with, especially with this team that could be sticking around for a couple turns thanks to the bulk of Tinglu and the Gouging Fire. If you get Thunder Waves off and your opponent's not able to move, yeah, you could really build up damage, while if they get paralyzed once, they lose a lot of momentum. So that is what Thundurus can do on this team. So let's talk about the leads and how to use the team. Overall, I'd say with the team, you probably will be leading one of either Gouging Fire or Thundurus Incarnate most of the time, because they're probably like the best setup leads for the most cases. Because with Thundurus, you're overall just able to kind of like slow down the game with Thunder Wave, Taunt, and Eerie Impulse to be just super disruptive against your opponent. Like I think Thundurus leads a lot with like either Thundurus plus Tinglu, which you can of course with the Vessel Ruin, which is really strong. You can go for stuff like Eerie Impulse, Thunder Wave, and just like attack with the Tinglu and get some good chip damage for whatever Pokemon in the back you want to sweep. You also have like Thundurus Incarnate plus Urshifu, which is pretty strong, especially in like Porygon 2, Ursaluna stuff, and just go on the offense. And of course like Thunder Wave, Surging Strikes is pretty good, as well as Eerie Impulse, which is pretty strong with the Urshifu, because that means the Urshifu really will be able to take the attacks with no problem, which is super strong. You of course have the Gouging Fire, which can lead with the Howl option to boost the attacks. Gouging Fire plus Tinglu, you could go for like Howl immediately, and then Tinglu can dish out a ton of damage. Gouging Fire Chien-Pao, Gouging Fire plus Dragonite, Gouging Fire plus Urshifu, just Howl, Breaking Swipe, all of those good factors, which is really strong there. And then try to clean up in the back usually. Like lead wise, you're probably not switching too much with the team. You generally want to have a set lead, and you want to like find a way to slow down your opponent and build up the damage so you can like clean up with whatever is in the back. Usually Chien-Pao and Dragonite would love to be in the back usually, because they're really strong for cleaning up endgame situations. So that's usually what you want to do. But there are quite a few ways you can set up with, again, this team. And then, of course, you could lead Multi-Skill Dragonite, which is super safe, the Vessel Ruin with the Tinglu, or Chien-Pao offense immediately. Chien-Pao Dragonite can lead with this team, but it's usually more of a stronger mode in the back, especially with Multi-Skill Dragonite over the Inner Focus. So that would probably be a combination you would like to have in the back to clean up. But again, there are like several ways you can try to approach it, but like leads are actually going to be pretty important with this team, because it helps with the pacing, as you don't really want to switch as much with this team. You'd really just want to be building out the chip damage and disrupting your opponent to kind of like build up towards, again, two Pokemon in the back that can clean up. If you would like to check out the details of the team and the creator, they'll be linked in the description down below. And if you would like to check out day 1 and day 2 of the Grand Challenge, which I did actually live stream, you can check it out in the live stream playlist. And I am doing post commentary again because I am still sick, as I did record the day 3 while I was sick, and I'm feeling mostly better, but I'm still a little bit sick right now. I'm recording, but it's like the last time I can record before I leave for a trip. So here we go, post commentary once again. All my day 3 games we are going to be playing right now. So our first opponent is going to be a 1609 rating, running Gouging Fire, Dragonite, Chien-Pao, King Gambit, Rillaboom, and Urshifu. This is a 6 that actually got top 32 at the recent European International Championship, with the notable ones. I think it was Choice Band Dragonite alongside the Assault Vest King Gambit, Clear Amulet Rillaboom, and I think it was Safety Goggles Urshifu. So here I'm like, okay, this matchup, it can be tricky because you can't really freely Breaking Swipe with the Gouging Fire as much. Normally in the match, we would go for Breaking Swipe, maybe force a Terra Fairy, but of course there is the King Gambit, and if you Breaking Swipe the King Gambit, it will get a Defiant attack boost. So it's a little bit strange here because I do have tools for the King Gambit, but of course there are some things that could get a bit out of hand. Choice Band Dragonite, of course, is extremely scary depending on like how it is played, so that is something I'm going to have to keep in mind. So I'm deciding on leading Urshifu plus Thundurus because I like the idea of potentially paralyzing the King Gambit before it can go for like Howl Spam. And I like Urshifu because it can break through King Gambit, it can break through the Chien-Pao, which I think is pretty nice, as well as like dish out a lot of damage into the Gouging Fire immediately. I do want to bring my own Gouging Fire. Of course, Breaking Swipe and Heat Crash are really great in this matchup, especially with the speed booster. And then last month, I'm thinking Dragonite here, because Ting-Lu doesn't really do anything. There's not really many special attackers, and Chien-Pao, it is kind of nice, but I'm a little bit weak to their priority spam as well as their own Urshifu. So I decided to bring Dragonite because I think it is the most consistent way of handling it. It also is the best way I can break through the Gouging Fire if it goes for Terra Fairy in this matchup. So I lead the Thundurus Urshifu versus their Dragonite and Chien-Pao, and I'm like, okay, not the greatest lead, but this should be able to work. This Urshifu is extremely bulky, so it can live Terra Normal Extreme Speed into attack from Chien-Pao, so this should be an okay matchup position. Now, the question is, do I want to stay in? Do I want to potentially switch out? I'm like, I can't really afford to switch out because I can't really let Gouging Fire or Dragonite take too much damage here. So I'm like, okay, I'm probably just going for damage here. So here, I'm like, what is the biggest threat? I think it's a Chien-Pao, which is a little bit annoying in general to my Dragonite. And I'm debating about, like, do I just click Thunder Wave or do I click Wall Bolt Storm here? Like, what do I exactly want to do? Since Surging Strikes won't knock out the Chien-Pao, I'm like debating about Wall Bolt Storm, but I decided just to go for the Thunder Wave and the Dragonite because if it's like the Scale Shot Dragonite, I can't let that go out of control. As you see, the Urshifu does survive the Sucker Punch into Extreme Speed. It would have survived the Terra Normal Extreme Speed as well. We do get a Thunder Wave para on the Dragonite, which is really useful, and I am going to be able to get a Surging Strikes off into the Chien-Pao. So it's not a super ideal turn by any means, but I am able to at least get a lot of damage into Chien-Pao, and there's a chance the Dragonite is not able to move, and that would be really, really ideal if that's the case. We also know the Dragonite is Choice Band and locked into Extreme Speed. And here I'm like, again, I can't really afford to switch out in this position because I will just take too much damage. So I'm debating about detecting or do I go on the offense here. And I am really heavily contemplating this, but I just decide to go for Detect and Wall Bolt Storm because I want to try to get maybe like my Gouging Fire so I could go for a Breaking Swipe the next turn. They go for Extreme Speed, they target down my Urshifu, and I'm like, okay, if they're Ice Spinner, yeah, like that's fine, but it's Icicle Crash and it does take out my Thundurus. So I'm like, okay, I do lose my Thundurus, but granted, Thundurus basically wasn't really doing anything. It was only really again to punish a Gouging Fire lead. So here I'm a bit down, but I can actually bring out my Gouging Fire now and start going for Breaking Swipe because now the Chien-Pao is in range of Breaking Swipe and the Dragonite will be taking the attack drop. So this is not a terrible position by any means. It's not ideal, but it's not great. I'm going to have to clean up the end game with my Dragonite plus my Gouging Fire, but I think I could absolutely do that with this team. So here, I'm just debating about like, okay, what exactly do I want to click here? Do I want to click Aqua Jet or do I want to click Surging Strikes into the Dragonite? Because I could get a single target Aqua Jet off into the PAL. And I'm like, or a single target Breaking Swipe into the Dragonite, which makes things a bit easier for me. So I'm like, okay, do I want to go for that or not? Because I'm also debating on like, do they also have King Gambit in the back? Because if they have King Gambit, that could be a problem. So I actually decide to try and catch the King Gambit if they switch out to Dragonite, and I go for the Heat Crash into the Chien-Pao because, again, I don't want to activate the Defiant on King Gambit if it's in the back. So I do knock out the POW, as Extreme Speed did take out my Urshifu. I'm like, okay, it's not like the worst position. It's not the most ideal position, but I still have Terrassization, and I can go for Breaking Swipe. So not too bad. They bring out the Gouging Fire, and this is where it's going to get tricky because I don't know what's in the back. At this point, I can't tell if it's going to be King Gambit or if it's going to be something else. I feel like if they had King Gambit, they would have probably brought it out on the Dragonite because I felt like it was a bit safe to in retrospect. So I'm like, okay, I'm probably at this point just hoping that it isn't going to be the case. I think they're going to just target down the Dragonite. I'm just going to go for a Howl Protect here because with the Terra Fairy, because with the Terra Fairy, if they don't Terra their Gouging Fire, they will lose to my Gouging Fire, and I'm completely okay with that. So here I'm just trying to get some attack boost on my Dragonite so I can actually dish out some heavy damage. So again, I'm also trying to scout for the King Gambit in the back. I think it's less likely they brought it, but this also covers it if they did bring it in the back. So I also don't want to Terra Steel my Dragonite and then just lose to like a Heat Crash, because Extreme Speed in a Heat Crash would probably knock out my Dragonite, while Breaking Swipe probably less likely. They actually go for Terrassization here, and it's going to be with the Dragonite. I'm like, okay, this is actually pretty good for me because that means my Gouging Fire should be able to beat their Gouging Fire because they no longer are able to be immune to the Breaking Swipe. They go for a attack here with Dragonite. They get paralyzed. I'm not sure which target that they went for. It could have been into my Dragonite, which means the para didn't matter. Actually, it might have actually helped me more if it didn't get parried and they targeted my Dragonite because of the fact that it would use an Extreme Speed power point, which is actually kind of big here because if the Dragonite, we do get into a situation where it's forced to struggle, that could have been huge for me. So here, they went for a Breaking Swipe, which is nice because I get a free Howl off, and now I can go for attacks here, and I'm just going to go for the Breaking Swipe here plus the Scale Shot. And here, it gets dicey because they reveal the Burning Bulwark. It's a move that's been dropped on Gouging Fire more often, so that was definitely something that I was not hoping to see, but we get another Paralysis on the Dragonite, which is very fortunate here on this one especially, because now I'm able to get a Breaking Swipe into the Dragonite, and my Dragonite gets to keep Multi-Scale guaranteed, or my Gouging Fire just takes less damage across the board, which both are really solid. So now I get a Scale Shot off into the Dragonite, and I'm able to get some really good damage. It looks like a 5-hitter would KO the Dragonite, and if I get a 4-hitter, it is going to be in range of Breaking Swipe at least. So there are a few things in mind, but I do get the 5-hitter, which is very fortunate because I am able to knock out the Dragonite on their side. And now it really just depends on who's in the back. If it's Urshifu, it could get a little bit dicey because now with my Gouging Fire burned, it is not exactly the greatest spot. And if it's King Gambit, it's going to be tricky because we'll see how much Heat Crash does when burned. It is with a +1 attack, but it's not the greatest spot. And I still have to get rid of the Gouging Fire. But last mon happens to be the best mon that I could have hoped for. It's Rillaboom, which I was very shocked to see Rillaboom as the last Pokemon because it wasn't really great into my team other than, I guess, priority for Chien-Pao and the Tinglu. And I guess Urshifu, but like, I don't think Tinglu is the biggest threat here. And I guess Urshifu, but you also had like the Dragonite as well. So I'm like very happy about this, and now it's like a decent spot for me. Now the question is there going to be a fake out, or are they going to go straight for the Wood Hammer? Because in order to win this game, they do need to actually get damage onto my Gouging Fire, because they can't touch my Gouging Fire with their Gouging Fire. Only Rillaboom can touch my Gouging Fire. And here I'm like, they might go for Fake Out Breaking Swipe, so I don't want them to also go for like Fake Out and Howl. That's actually what I'm really scared of, so that's why I'm going for the Breaking Swipe here. Because I want to lower the attack on the Gouging Fire just to make sure that Howl doesn't put like them getting a Grassy Glide +1 Breaking Swipe into my Dragonite and KOing it. So they go for Breaking Swipe. The Rillaboom actually didn't go for Fake Out or Grassy Glide here, and they instead went for a Wood Hammer, and it's going to target down my Gouging Fire. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty all right here for me, as the fact that now I'm actually in a pretty decent spot because of that, and now I should have a pretty good endgame secured here at this point because of the fact that they didn't really get that much damage thanks to the Breaking Swipe. And now I'm like, okay, I was debating about going for the the Extreme Speed plus Heat Crash, and looking back at it, I still think it might have been better. But I decided instead to risk the Breaking Swipe here in case it's like Protect Rillaboom for some reason. So because it also hits the gouging fire if the Rillaboom protects. So I go for the breaking swipe here and the scale shot because I'm like pretty sure that this is able to knock out Rillaboom. And with 2 scale shot speed boosts, I will be able to outspeed the gouging fire. I think looking back, this is probably a misplay. I think I should just assume that Rillaboom's never going to run protect in this format really, and should have went for the extreme speed plus heat crash, because as you can see, I actually missed a knockout into the Rillaboom, which means now they can actually go for like a wood hammer into my gouging fire and pick up the knockout, but they instead go for the wood hammer into Dragonite for some reason. I'm like, okay, that does mean the recoil does take out the Rillaboom. I mean, here's the thing. I still would have probably been in a really likely spot to win the game as long as I hit the scale shot. But looking back at it, I think the play is just always to extreme speed with a heat crash. Because +1 heat crash, even with burn, with the +1 extreme speed from my Dragonite, should always mean that I KO the Rillaboom. So I think looking back at it, that was definitely a misplay, but now I can just secure the game by going for Howl and Protect, because then I don't think I have to risk Scale Shot to win this game. I'm pretty sure I could just spam Breaking Swipe and Extreme Speed. So I go for the Howl. It's also probably more likely they target the Dragonite, and even if they target the Gouging Fire, like as you can see from the Heat Crash, yeah, it doesn't do that much damage because it's just a really weak base power move here. And I think I'm also trying to call out if they're going to go for Burning Bulwark as well, because they could definitely go for Burning Bulwark, because if I go for the extreme speed, they could get the burn on me. So I'm like, okay, let's see what they got. I actually go for the Scale Shot predicting the Burning Bulwark here, and they do go for the Burning Bulwark, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I got it right. So I make sure that Dragonite doesn't get burned guaranteed, and they also are like trying to stall out the grassy terrain, so the Gouging Fire actually takes damage from the burn. And now extreme speed into the breaking swipe should be like really likely to win the game. Like, it's really unlikely for them to be able to win this game, and that's kind of why Terra Fairy is kind of important on the Gouging Fire in this matchup, because it's really important, because as you could see, the breaking swipes were just kind of annoying for my opponent to deal with. So I go for the extreme speed plus breaking swipe, as I'm like pretty sure I'm either going to KO or get like really close to a KO. So I do get the extreme speed off, does a lot of damage, and it kind of reveals that we're just speed tie. I actually thought they had like the slower Gouging Fire for the most part of this game, but we just ended up speed tying because we were both max speed, as breaking swipe does KO the Gouging Fire at this range. And yeah, the only thing I think I really messed up in was the one where it's like, okay, I could have doubled up the Rillaboom, and if I double up the Rillaboom with extreme speed plus heat crash at one turn, I think I am able to seal the game. But otherwise, I do think, obviously there was a pair that was lucky, but that is kind of like how Thundurus goes sometimes. So yeah, overall, I do feel that I was just able to take better utilization of my Gouging Fire in the matchup, which was very helpful. All right, we have Vince, who's a 1593 rating, with Fluttermane, Glamour, Dondozo, Tatsugiri, with the Alolan Ninetales, and the Articuno. And Dondozo, I'm pretty negative. If you've seen my streams, I do stream on YouTube and Twitch. Let me just say I've been very negative against Dondozo, because I think the close team sheet Dondozo matchup is not great with this team, because if it's like Terra Fairy, you can't breaking swipe it. If it's the Covert Cloak, you can't breaking swipe attack drop it. If it's unaware, that means that if you're trying to go for Howl to play around the Oblivious that's been popping off, yeah, you're not doing as much damage as you would like, and it's a mostly physical offensive team, and the only thing is Thundurus really that can hit the Dondozo. So yeah, it's not really the greatest situation. But here I'm like, okay, if it's Glim with Fluttermane, a Tinglu with Terra Poison, I'm pretty sure I have to go here, because with the poison, I can't really let my team get like fully poisoned. I think then I would just be losing for the most part. So here I'm like, okay, in most cases, Gouging Fire is decent against the Snow mode. It's also good into Fluttermane. It's just weak into Glamora. I'm going to bring the Tinglu because of the Terra Poison, so I can, you know, avoid the Toxic Spikes from like affecting my entire team, because I also have Dragonite in the back that can switch in on Toxic Spikes and then go back into Tinglu, which is fine. Dragonite's like my best damage dealer against the Dondozo. That isn't like Thundurus, but I don't really like Thundurus too much because it just gets walled by Terra Grass. And then I bring Qianpao for the Sacred Sword pressure. So we're going to be the Fluttermane and the Glamora, and I kind of had to make some calls out on this turn immediately, because they have a few options. They could go for Terra Grass with the Glamora to avoid like the ground type move from the Tinglu. They could go for a Meteor Beam right off the bat. They could Spiky Shield to Scouts. So it's a bit ugly. And we also revealed the Fluttermane is faster and gets the speed booster. So it's faster than my Gouging Fire, which is already not ideal. So Here, I'm just gonna rip it at this point. I'm already like, against Dondozo, I've already played this so many times and lost to it so many times. I'm like, I'm just willing to go for it immediately. And if I take the loss, I take the loss. I'm just gonna go for the Terra Poison Earthquake and the Protect here, because you want the Terra Poison on deck immediately so you don't get like Mortal Spin, but also so if I have to switch out to the Tinglu immediately, again, to make sure the Toxic Spikes don't like start adding up. I think that's pretty big. Earthquake also like generally 2 shots Flutter Mane. So I feel like that this is the best possible case. Otherwise, like I'd have to Heat Crash, Glimmora, maybe go for a Howl, but I also don't want my Gouging Fire to take the speed drop immediately, or Thunder Wave potentially, because that means I'm going to be slower than Dondozo, which means I can't go for the Breaking Swipe or go for the Howl, so that I might need to break through the Dondozo. So I will go for the Terra Poison with my Tinglu and try to break through this combo, as we do go for the Protect with our Gouging Fire. Again, trying to scout or catch a Meteor Beam as they go for a Spiky Shield. I'm like, okay, this is pretty bad. Like, this is pretty bad. And I'm like, okay, they go for Thunder Wave. They tar down the Gouging Fire. And I'm like, okay, that is okay, except this is still a really ugly spot unless the Flutter Mane goes down to the Earthquake, maybe an Earthquake Crit, but like I don't think it's very likely here. So here I'm like debating about my next potential option here, as the Earthquake does do like half, which is nice. But now I'm like, okay, is my best play to go Dragonite and Earthquake? But I take so much damage on Dragonite with the Meteor Beam, I lose a resource, and then my entire team's getting poisoned anyway. So I'm already really down behind, as you can tell. So I'm like, I think my best odds here is to go for a double Protect, because if I get the double Protect, then I get a double Earthquake KO most likely here, because it's very unlikely I think they Terra Grass the Glimmora in this case. I mean, they're just going to rip a Meteor Beam into the Gouging Fire, and I'm like, okay, if that's the case, I could get a potential Earthquake double knockout here, and that'd be huge. So I get a Protect off with the Gouging Fire. A double Protect is massive here, as they go for Thunder Wave into Tinglu, because they're expecting to get the knockout into my Gouging Fire with the Meteor Beam, which I'm kind of surprised by. They could have went for the Thunder Wave and the Gouging Fire and Meteor Beam, but they do fire off the Meteor Beam. They are going to be consuming their Power Herb and getting that +1 special attack boost, and thankfully it's going to go into my Gouging Fire's Protect. I'm like, okay, if Tinglu gets the Earthquake off, really good position here, but we get paralyzed, which is very unfortunate, because I think that would have just been game defining right now. Now it's like, okay, Gouging Fire is still vulnerable. There's an Earth Power that could be coming out. This is not like a super amazing position. I might have to get poisoned with a POW and lose my Focus Sash or Gouging Fire. I decide to go to Dragonite and just click the Earthquake now at this point, because I feel like if I don't have the Breaking Swipe potential for the Dondozo, because if it's like the poison stuff with Tinglu, or not the poison stuff with Tinglu, the poison stuff with Glimmora, if it's like T-Specs with Dondozo, they usually like to run leftovers with Unaware, I think, more than the Oblivious sets. So here I'm thinking I probably need the Breaking Swipe more than the Scale Shot immediately. So I'm going to go into the Dragonite here to avoid taking like an Earth Power that they could throw off. They go for Protect with the Flutter Mane. I'm like, okay, I am going to be able to get a Earthquake off. And they go for an Earth Power actually into my Dragonite. So my Dragonite actually gets to keep Multiscale, which is really nice here because of the fact that it's still going to be able to take 1 hit from Dondozo guaranteed. So I do get an Earthquake off into the Glimmora, and I do take the knockout in trade of Toxic Spikes going up on my side of the field. But it's not a bad position, because at least only one Pokemon is going to get poisoned on my team, because I could always switch out to Tinglu. The problem is I do have to waste a turn switching out to Tinglu, and now I'm like, okay, is it potentially worth it? Because Dondozo does come in, and I'm like, okay, they could go for Protect with Dondozo, and they could go for like an attack with Flutter Mane, or they could go straight for the Dondozo Tatsugiri mode. They're going to go straight for the Dondozo Tatsugiri. I just went for Earthquake Protect because it did cover, like, again, if they decide, hey, I'm going to go for a I'm going to go for an Icy Wind there. So here, the Dondozo, again, is still very tricky to handle, but I know that Tinglu can definitely at least survive 1 attack guaranteed here, and now I just have to start racking up the damage. The only problem is this Dondozo is going to be very hard to damage. We do go for Protect here, we preserve our multi-scale, and they actually went for an order up into Dragonite. So I'm like, okay, Tinglu didn't take any damage, which is really nice actually, as we are able to go for an Earthquake here into the Dondozo, and that is very nice. Just getting some free chip damage is always appreciated because it starts building up. But what's actually interesting is one, that's a really bulky Dundozo that Earthquake did nothing. But another interesting note is it's not leftovers, so I can start stacking up the damage. So here I'm going to go for Scale Shot. And here at this point, I'm like, is it worth switching out Tinglu, or is it just worth going for damage? Because another thing I'm also a little bit worried about is the Sword of Ruin damage. But at this point, I'm like, I think I need to Sword of Ruin damage more on my side to actually build up damage into Dundozo. So I'm going to go hard into POW. I'm going to take the poison, which is what it is. And I'm going to start threatening the Sacred Swords and the Scale Shots damage adding up. Because they're not leftovers, they can't protect to get leftovers recovery, which actually makes this a lot easier for me. They go for the order up, and because of the Sword of Ruin, as you can see, it does so much damage in the Dragonite. If it's like unaware on the Dundozo, I could potentially live 2 order ups if I don't have the Sword of Ruin out. So that's why I was a little bit contemplating about attacking with the Tinglu immediately. We also get a Scale Shot crit, which is very helpful because again, every bit of damage, of course, trade for a 4-hitter instead of a 5-hitter. I'll definitely take that. So here, still not easy because the Dundozo could be, I don't think it's jolly at this point because I think it has a lot of bulk. So I'm just going to go straight for the damage with Scale Shot plus the Sacred Sword, because I could go for like extreme speed here to go for a guaranteed damage, but I don't know who they're targeting because they still have to fear like Sacred Sword from the POW, and they have to fear like the Scale Shot doing some decent damage from Dragonite. And if they are Jolly Dundozo, then that means I probably only get 1 attack off here, but it's either nice Scale Shot, even if it's without Sword of Ruin, or I get a decent Sacred Sword off. So here, I'm just going to keep attacking. There's really no point with Dundozo. I just got to keep attacking. That's kind of like what I have to do in this situation. And yeah, I could have went for like maybe Sucker Punch plus extreme speed, but I wasn't sure if like I'd be getting the KO the next turn. They go for the protect, I guess, to build up the poison damage and scout what I want to do in case I do go for like Sucker Punch extreme speed and they know their speed tier, because I'm the one more of guessing their speed tier here, because of the fact that again, it could be Jolly, which means it would outspeed my POW here, or Adamant, which means that it is slower than my Chien POW and my Dragonite here. So here, I'm just going to keep going for the same attacks. Like again, just relentlessly trying to break through this Dundozo, because once I get through Dundozo, Tinglu is actually healthy, so it should be able to take on the Tatsugiri and the Flutter Mane, assuming it doesn't get like fully paralyzed, and I still have a Gouging Fire in the back. So here, it's just like, again, start building up the damage into Dundozo. Not much I can really say, and yeah, like there really is not much to think about for me here, because all I'm just trying to do is just trying to break through this Dundozo, because if I switch, there's nothing I really need from these Pokemon. And yeah, my Scale Shot does go off first, so pretty much confirms that it is going to be the Adamant Dundozo. And I did think so based on the damage prior. And what's nice is also like another Scale Shot crit. But of course, when you're using a multi-hit move, you do have like, you know, a decent chance to be able to get like a crit from one of those attacks here. So very nice here. But they're actually faster than my POW, which I was a bit surprised by. So it was slower than my Dragonite +1, but it was faster than my POW. I guess even then, like, it's still completely fine. I mean, I could have went for Sucker Punch, I suppose, but like I didn't know the speed tier of this Dundozo. So I go for Sacred Sword, KO the Dundozo, and now it's Tatsugiri and Flutter Mane out, and I am pretty much set here. I have a Tinglu that's a full HP. I have a Gouging Fire. Like, I had way more resources than I thought I would have to deal with the remaining Pokemon after Dundozo gets knocked out. I'm able to get rid of the Toxic Spike so my Gouging Fire doesn't get poisoned, and now it's Flutter Mane, Tatsugiri, and I'm like, okay, I have a few different plays I can go for. I have a Sucker Punch mind game that I have here. I just decide to go for Protect Earthquake because it's pretty safe. Like, Flutter Mane with Speed Booster plus the Tatsugiri can't really do anything to my Tinglu, so I get a free Earthquake chance, and I get to scout for like Protects, or like, because they also want to dodge the Sucker Punches. I also get to see that the Flutter Mane is faster than my Chien-Pao, but it's kind of to be expected here as the Muddy Water does come out here from the Tatsugiri, and it does not much damage because the Vessel of Ruin is pretty much just allowing that Tinglu to be able to hang on. We do get the Earthquake off, which is very nice because it now puts the Tatsugiri into range of Sucker Punch. So now I have 2 targets that I can Sucker Punch, so it's another added layer to the mind game here that my opponent doesn't have access to. They could go for like a double protect with the Flutter Mane, they could go for like a Thunder Wave or a Taunt, and the Tatsugiri also has to guess right here if it is like not choice locked. But here I decide I'm just going to Sucker Punch the Tatsugiri because it's the thing that can do the most damage here, and I'm just going to try to target the Flutter Mane with the Tinglu in case the Tatsugiri does have Protect and reveals to Protect here. So we are able to get the Sucker Punch. The Tatsugiri attacked, it gets KO'd. Moonblast gets fired off into the Qianpao. Qianpao goes down. But at this point, as long as I don't get super unlucky with like Thunderwave pairs, I pretty much win the game. Throw Chop is able to eliminate the Flutter Mane, and we are able to win. And let me just say, I've lost to so many Dundozos in this tournament, so just being able to actually win against one of them was really nice. Did I get lucky a bit? Sure, but like I don't think it was like crazy luck. I also did get unlucky with the Thunderwave para after getting the double protect, so it kind of balanced out. And we have Sam with a 1648 rating, running the Dragonite, Qianpao, Raging Bolt, Entei, Urshifu, and Flutter Mane. So this is a very offensive team, and I'm not exactly sure how I like the looks of it for my side, because they have a lot of threats, of course. I mean, there is no Gouging Fire, which makes this a lot easier. Entei is definitely a bit easier to deal with than Gouging Fire, because of the fact that if I had to deal with Breaking Swipe pressure as well, could be a little bit tough. Like, Gouging Fire is good in this matchup. Breaking Swipe seems pretty good, and I'm going to lead it with Thundurus, because of the fact that some of the mons that they could bring to really break through the Gouging Fire early involve Flutter Mane, which could be annoying. I do want to potentially go for like a Thunder Wave or Taunt into it. And yeah, also the Raging Bolt as well. I decided to bring Qianpao because I probably need it against the Dragonite and the Raging Bolt in the back. And I bring my Dragonite as well, because Urshifu, it's bringable, but I think that they probably bring the Raging Bolt, so I want to make sure I have multiple ways of covering for the Raging Bolt, especially Terra Fairy Raging Bolt here. So they leave a Qianpao Entei versus Thundurus plus Gouging Fire, and I'm like, okay, Thundurus isn't exactly super ideal here because it didn't catch like a Flutter Mane or a Raging Bolt on the lead, because if they did lead, I was going to Eerie Impulse spam. But now my Gouging Fire is in a pretty good position because it pretty much just gets a free Breaking Swipe. My opponent doesn't have a way to stop the Breaking Swipe from coming out, and I guess they could go for like Extreme Speed for a lot of damage, but you commit your Terrestrialization, I get the Breaking Swipe off, it's not terrible for me. So here, I'm like, okay, after the Breaking Swipe, I should live an Ice move from the Qianpao, so just go for the Breaking Swipe plus Wall Bolt Storm and start building up the damage. I get the Breaking Swipe attack drop onto both, no Extreme Speed came out, and the Qianpao is going to go for the Ice Spinner. I'm like, okay, cool. My Thundurus lives because of the fact that we got the attack drop. And then they go for the Ice Spinner, and then they get a critical hit. I'm like, well, so much for that idea. So much for that idea. As the Entei is going to go for Stone Edge, but I guess a bit of karma. The Gouging Fire does avoid the attack, which is really nice here. I am able to bring out the Dragonite now, but now there's some things that can be kept in mind. They could go for a Terra Ghost with Qianpao now to avoid Heat Crash getting knocked out. The Qianpao is in Heat Crash range, but I think I have to risk it here. So I go for the Heat Crash, I'm just going for the Scale Shot. I do think like the Stone Edge, you know, would have done some damage, but it wasn't like knocking out my Gouging Fire, which was pretty big. And luckily, they don't decide to Terrasilize. So I'm just able to get a Heat Crash, knock out the Qianpao, and I'm able to get a Scale Shot off into the Entei. And I'm like, just don't Sacred Fire burn me. They missed the Sacred Fire, and I'm like that's really good for me. I'm not going to say it wasn't like great for me, because I do get to keep my multi-scale. As long as it wasn't burning me though, I feel like that was the only thing that I really cared about, was just don't burn me with the Sacred Fire, as it was 50. We did get a 4-hit Scale Charm response, and we got the 5-hitter. I think we KO'd a Entei. I don't think it's terrible though, because it's in Breaking Swipe range or Extreme Speed range. But of course that means they could still break my multi-scale with the Extreme Speed with the Entei, or they could protect us all around. So we know it wasn't Choice Band Entei. They bring out their Dragonite. I'm like, okay, are you Terra Normal or are you Terra Steel? Because it really just depends on how it plays out. And here I'm also trying to figure out, do I want to go for a Terra Fairy with the Gouging Fire? Because if I go for Terra Fairy with the Gouging Fire, that means that I am going to be able to survive like an Outrage or a Scale Shot, because I'm a little bit worried if the Dragonite starts stacking Scale Shots. So I'm like debating about like potentially risking it immediately, but I think looking back, I'm just like, okay, I think I'd rather just like make sure that they can't go for it. So as much as I would like to Terra Steel on the Dragonite potentially, or, you know, keep it in the back, I think I'm just going to go for Terra Fairy with the Gouging Fire and the Protect here, because I think it's like my overall safest play, just to ensure I don't get knocked out by Outrage or Scale Shot. And again, I don't want them to stack the speed boost, because it could get a little bit annoying here. So they're going to go for Terrasization. I pretty much knew the Dragonite was most likely going to Terrasilize, but I had no idea which Terra it was going to be. So it is going to Terra, and it's going to reveal Terra Normal. So I'm like, okay, I could have probably, you know, maybe went on the offense here a bit more, but I guess that's fine here because I am going to be able to protect my Dragonite and get a breaking swipe off here into my opponent. So they go for an extreme speed with the Entei into my Gouging Fire, and they reveal Life Orb Entei. So that's fine by me. I am able to get a breaking swipe off into the Dragonite, and it is able to get a attack drop into the Dragonite, which is really nice because the Dragonite can no longer switch out. And they didn't go for extreme speed, so I'm like, okay, Terra Normal usually means Choice Band, and they go for a Outrage. And I'm like, ooh, okay, so there's a few different ways I could play this endgame depending on the last Pokemon. They reveal Urshifu, and I'm like, I don't know that Urshifu is protect or not, because one of the plays they have access to is they could protect Urshifu and go for Outrage again and hope they hit my Dragonite. Here I decide I'm going to Breaking Swipe plus Scale Shot the Dragonite. The reason I decide to do that is it covers, like, you know, the Urshifu just not be like having a random ice move here. But I think this was probably a mistake here. I think I should have went for a Heat Crash double up into the Dragonite and taken the knockout into the Dragonite guaranteed, because as you can see, Breaking Swipe plus Scale Shot barely misses the knockout on Dragonite. While if I went for Heat Crash, it would have taken the KO, or maybe even how Scale Shot would have been better. They go for Starting Strikes here, and I'm like, okay, this could get a little bit dicey. I think it really just depends on the Dragonite here, because does the Dragonite target into my Gouging or into my Dragonite? And they get my Dragonite, so I'm like, okay, this could get actually tricky, because my last Pokemon as I brought was Qianpao, and I'm like, okay, this is actually kind of weird, because now I'm actually in a really weird spot against Urshifu. So here I'm like, because of the Sword of Ruin plus the attack drop, I feel like it's still, even with the Sword of Ruin, I should live an Aqua Jet with Gouging, but it really just depends on, do I live this Aqua Jet with Gouging? They get another critical hit, and I did the calc afterward on the Urshifu, if it's like Mystic Water. Like, with the crit, it was pretty much needing a crit, because they were like, it was like 3 rolls to potentially just KO my Gouging Fire with the Sword of Ruin at -1 attack, because the attack drop from the Breaking Swipe. So I'm like, unfortunate, but that's how it is. So here I'm just gonna go for a Sacred Sword, and I'm like, yeah, there's not really much I can do. I think I was actually calculating the damage while in between this, but yeah, like the Aqua Jet was like the Aqua Jet crit was like, okay, because again, it was like really low chance. I think it was 3 rolls specifically that was KOing my Gouging Fire at that range. So now I go for Sacred Sword, and I'm like, I guess we could maybe go for Sucker Punch crit. They do reveal that their Urshifu is going to be Mystic Water, and yeah, that's why I was calculating like Mystic Water Urshifu. And yeah, they are able to KO my Qianpao with the Surging Strike, so I'm not even able to get to the Sucker Punch with the Qianpao, so I do lose this one. This one was kind of strange because there was like RNG on both sides, and I can't really say who had the better benefit. All right, we have Cedrico from 1628. We have a Okidogi, Raging Bull, Cresselia, Rillaboom, Urshifu, and Incineroar, which is definitely an interesting form of balance with Okidogi and Cresselia here, because I'm like, okay, this is a bit strange, but they do have a Trick Room element, and things that I was looking at are pretty good here. I was like, Terra Poison Tinglu looks fantastic. They don't exactly have the best ways of breaking through Terra Poison Tinglu. We look at their team, and Gouging Fire is also really good because Breaking Swipe is really tricky for them to really handle. So that was like the combo I was like really looking well at, and I'm trying to debate about what the rest would probably be, because I'm not really a big fan of Thundurus in this matchup. It doesn't really do much here. Eerie Impulse, sure, on the Raging Bull, but that's it. I decided to go with Qianpao and the Dragonite, because in order to get rid of Terrain, I'm going to need Ice Spinner on my Qianpao to remove that grassy terrain, so Earthquake could actually hit at the full force. And then I bring Dragonite because it's just good into Urshifu, Rillaboom, and the Incineroar core. So they lead the Raging Bull plus the Urshifu immediately, and I'm like, okay, could be a little bit tricky. I don't know if they want to Terrasilize. I don't know if they want to go hard into Rillaboom immediately. I could go for some straight up damage here, and I'm like, do I want to target down the Urshifu, or do I want to target down the Raging Bolt, because this is actually kind of a big one here. So here I'm like, okay, do they switch out and protect? That could definitely be a potential play for like a fake out situation. I'm like, do I want to go for Protect Earthquake? Do I want to just go for a Terra Blast immediately? And I was debating about this quite a bit because I wasn't 100% sure of what I wanted to click here, because I'm like, okay, if the Rillaboom switches in, does it switch in, and like where does it switch into? So I decided to just go for Protect, Terra Poison, Earthquake, because I'm like, do they go for Terastization immediately? And they did. So I think looking back at it, I would have preferred to go for Howl, Terra Poison, Terra Blast into one of the slots. It didn't matter if I caught the Raging Bolt. Like, I would have targeted the Raging Bolt expecting maybe potential Rillaboom switch, but I think I would have liked to Howl, Terra Poison, Terra Blast either way into an opponent, because I would have gotten more value out of my Tinglu, especially with the attack boost. I think would have been more important. And it's not like this Raging Bolt's really doing too much damage. So I think looking back at it, I definitely should have went for the Terra Poison, Terra Blast. I just thought I was more likely to switch out a Dragonite the next turn if Rillaboom was going to come in. So that's why I was like, okay, I don't think the Howl's like too important anyway in this position. But as you can see, the Surging Strike's doing a pretty decent amount to my Tinglu, but Tinglu is able to eat it up, which is nice. And the Raging Bolt is going to go for Calm Mind. And I got to worry about the Raging Bolt because I don't have Terra Fairy access on my Gouging Fire, which is pretty important here. So got to keep that in mind as I do go for the Earthquake. And also, Surging Strikes in the Dragon Pulse might actually be able to KO my Tinglu now. So I go for the Earthquake, does some decent damage, and now I'm like, okay, a little bit of a tricky spot. I think I probably have to Howl, and I think I am going to go for the risk here. I'm like, I think it's like really close with the attack here from my opponent of like, okay, do they get the knockout on a Tinglu? But there's also a chance they do ignore the Tinglu here. So I do go for the Howl to boost my attack. They go for the Surging Strikes into my Tinglu, and I can't exactly switch out, right? Because if they do double up, it will probably be into the Tinglu with Dragon Pulse Surging Strikes, and I have nothing that switches into the combination of both. So they go for the double up with Dragon Pulse with Surging Strikes, and the Tinglu does go down to it. So I'm like, okay, that wasn't the best showcase of like me utilizing this Tinglu here. So now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to be put in a really awkward spot. I will go out into my Dragonite here, which does have access to the Iron Head, so I can go for an Iron Head into the Raging Bolt. So I am gonna go for Howl, and I'm gonna go straight for the Iron Head into the Raging Bolt slot. I'm expecting either Incineroar to come in for the Urshifu, or that they just like potentially and go for Dragon Pulse, or they could Protect, which is fine because I at least get the boost, and it's like Urshifu can't really do much. They could go for Protect here plus Incineroar, or they're going to Dragon Pulse plus Incineroar, and I think that's completely fine because of the fact that I have Multi-Scale into Dragonite. I will be able to survive the attack, and I should be able to still KO with Extreme Speed afterward. They go out into Incineroar, get the Intimidate off, and this is where Multi-Scale is a little bit harmful because if I was Inner Focus, it'd be better. They actually go for Thunderclap instead, though, instead of Dragon Pulse. I'm like, that's actually really good for me because of the fact that I am going to be able to get a Howl off with my Dragonite and the Iron Head. And as you can see, a good amount of damage to the Raging Bolt that does put it in range of Extreme Speed. So now all I have to do is double Protect. They could have Rillaboom in the back, but I'm actually not sure if they even have Rillaboom at this point because I feel like if they had Rillaboom, they might have just went into it earlier. So here at this point, I'm just going to go for a double Protect because I don't think they have a Fake Out Pin cycle that they could go for here. And the next turn I can threaten the Extreme Speed, but there's still mind games involved. Of course, there is the chance of them just going for a Protect and a knockoff. So nowhere near out of the woods, but it's definitely looking better than it was previously. So go for a double Protect on the Fake Out. Not much to say. And then like they could go for like Fake Out Dragon Pulse, Fake Out Calm Mind, either of them work. The Bolt actually protects because they tried to go for an attack into the Dragonite, so this is actually really good for me. As they go for a Parting Shot attempt into my Gouging Fire, I'm like, I could have went for a Howl, and the Howl would have been really nice there, but that's fine by me. Now I'm just gonna go for Howl, and I'm gonna go for Extreme Speed because the Bolt just protected, so I can get the knockout into Bolt. And if they switch out, I mean the Bolt is weakened and it's not set up, so like that's pretty good here for me. So I am going to be able to survive also like a knockoff from Incineroar because it's not like I went for a Scale Shot to get the defense boost. So I am able to get an Extreme Speed off into the Raging Bolt. I do take the knock on the Raging Bolt, which is fantastic. And now that's one step gone, but I still have to deal with the Urshifu because the Urshifu is looking a bit dangerous because my Dragonite is getting lower and lower, and my two Pokemon, which are going to be Gouging Fire and Chien Power remaining, don't exactly handle Urshifu extremely well. So they go for a Parting Shot into my Gouging Fire. I'm like, Okay, interesting that they keep targeting the Gouging Fire, but that works for me because I am able to have my attack boost on Dragonite kept, which is actually really good. It's outpacing the Intimidate that my opponent does have by cycling. So they go on Urshifu again, and I'm like, okay, this is fine here. So Incineroar is going to come in, and there's still mind games available because they could go for Fake Out plus Surging, and they could also go for Protect plus Knockoff. And like here, for instance, I could go for like Howl Scale Shot into the Urshifu, and if they don't Fake Out, I do get the KO into the Urshifu. I could also like just Breaking Swipe here, and I just decide to go for the Howl, and I'm like, where do I go for the Scale Shot? And I'm like, is there a chance that Urshifu protects? Probably less likely, so I'm just gonna go for the Howl plus the Scale Shot into the Urshifu, and I'm just negating these Intimidate boosts. But I can also get a more powerful Extreme Speed into the Urshifu if they target Dragonite, because I'm like pretty sure I was surviving the Fake Out into the Surging Strikes here. And as you can see, the Dragonite is taking it, though it is getting extremely low, and the Urshifu is still looking very dangerous here for me. So not the greatest spot, as I mentioned before, still dangerous. And we also confirmed that the Urshifu is faster than Dragonite, which is not surprising here, but it means that I'm probably forced to go for Extreme Speed. And here, I just have to rip it because if they go for Protect, it gets a bit awkward. But at this point, I'm already super far down behind, and even if like I read the Urshifu to Protect and the Incineroar, you know, goes for a knockoff, it's still pretty bad spots. So regardless, like I don't think there's like a really good chance unless they mess up here, and I need the damage into Urshifu. Also, like there's also the fact that if I go for Howl Scale Shot, I would need to get extremely lucky into the Incineroar, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to need like a few Scale Shot crits to knock out the Incineroar, especially if it's like a Citrus Berry Incineroar. So here, just going to go for the Howl and the Extreme Speed, but they actually retreat to Urshifu instead and reveal Cresselia. I'm like, okay, good play on their part. I'm probably losing this because then that means they should be taking the knock on my Dragonite, right? I do get an Extreme Speed, and I do get a Breaking Swipe off to lower the attack on the Incineroar and get damage on the Cresselia. Oh, I also thought, no, I thought I went for Howl, but no, I went for Breaking Swipe because I needed the damage into Urshifu. But here's an interesting play. They went for a Parting Shot into my Gouging again. So they're just refusing to take the knock on the Dragonite because the Dragonite can't really protect because the Urshifu is faster and can Surging Strikes it. So I was just shocked to see the no targeting the Dragonite. I'm like, okay, I'm actually in the game now, because now I could go for like a Howl Scale Shot and take a knockout because the Cresselia is not able to terrestrialize. So I can go for Howl if I want to, and I could still go for an Extreme Speed if I want to, or I could go for a Scale Shot read because there's a chance that they might go out into Incineroar and protect the Urshifu again for the cycle. So yeah, this is just super weird because I could go for like Extreme Speed, Breaking Swipe, take the knock on Urshifu, or I could go for the Scale Shot. I'm like, I think they probably are going to go on the offense here. They switch out the Cresselia into Incineroar because I feel if I just keep getting Howls up, they're in a pretty bad position. And I feel like the Protect switch to Instant could be obvious, so they might actually go on the offense here with the Urshifu. And they actually do attack with the Urshifu, and I'm like, okay, nice. I'm able to get Howl off, and I'm able to get the Extreme Speed off, which is good for me because now the Urshifu is in range of the Sacred Sword. And I don't know why, but they Surging Strikes my Gouging Fire. I guess they kind of realized that because the Urshifu is going to be weakened, they need to get damage on the Gouging Fire at this point. But now I'm like, okay, wait, that's an amazing spot for me because now the Urshifu is threatened by the Extreme Speed once again, and I can go for Breaking Swipe, lower the attack on these Pokemon. And yeah, there really isn't that much my opponent can do. I'm also debating about, do I go for Howl or do I go for Breaking Swipe here? But yeah, at this point, I don't want to forfeit the battle. I'm just checking like my stat changes, and I'm like, do I want to go for Howl or do I want to go for Breaking Swipe? And I decide 2 Breaking Swipes is probably better in this position in order to take the knockout. So I'm going to go for Extreme Speed and Breaking Swipe because Fake Out won't be able to knock out my Dragonite. As we see the Fake Out, as you see, Dragonite does barely live. And the Urshifu does get to go for an attack here. And I'm like, okay, I do get a Breaking Swipe off into the Urshifu. And this does slightly less than I thought. I thought I was going to be able to 2-shot it. But they go for Surging Strikes again into Gouging. I'm like, wait. Okay, this is a really interesting position that they went for. Because now I have Extreme Speed and I have Scale Shot. And now it's a mind game of does Urshifu protect? or do they give me the Urshifu to extreme speed? There's also the chance they go to Cresselia, so I'm like, they have been playing very interestingly with the Urshifu. I am in Aqua Jet range with both Pokemon, but again, Extreme Speed's a threat. And also now, Howl plus Scale Shot will be able to take a knockout here. So I'm debating about, do I go for the Scale Shot into the Incineroar or not? And I decide to actually go for the Scale Shot into the Incineroar, or do I go for the Extreme Speed? I think I target the Incineroar. Yeah, I target the Incineroar. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out for me because the Urshifu actually played aggressive. I was really thinking maybe they go to Crest here, but they go for Starting Strikes and they target the Gouging. I'm like, if you're gonna target the Gouging, why didn't you just go for Aqua Jet? It's like, do they not have Aqua Jet? I'm like, I don't think it's Scarf. I'm pretty sure we didn't see Scarf, but yeah, I'm able to get a Scale Shot off into the Incineroar. I'm like, okay, it's Citrus Berry. I might need to get a 5-hitter into the Incineroar. This is actually like not the greatest spot. And then like the next Scale Shot did more. I'm like, oh wait, a 4-hitter looks like it does KO the Incineroar. And thankfully a 4-hitter is all I need here. And that pretty much is like, okay, I think that secures the game most likely. Or very likely, because I'm like, I can bring out the Chien-Pao, and I can go for a double up into the Cresselia slot. And I feel like that's my best play, as long as the Cresselia doesn't have Random Protect, because if it has Random Protect, I guess I could lose off this play, but I think it's really unlikely they go for a Protect here. So I'm going to go for Ice Spinner plus Extreme Speed, because like, okay, if the Urshifu targets my Dragonite, I get an Extreme Speed off into Crest, an Ice Spinner KOs to Crest, and then I have Chien-Pao that outspeeds the Urshifu. I win the game. If they target my Chien-Pao, I survive the Surging Strikes because it's not the Mystic Water, and then I'm just going to be able to 2v1 the Urshifu anyway. So, strange game for sure. I do regret my turn 1 play a lot, and I could use Tinglu better, but I think my opponent kind of misplayed like a lot with Urshifu. And all right, we got a 1562 rating. We have the Cornerstone Ogerpon, Rillaboom, Sneasler, with Raging Bolt, Farigiraf, and Incineroar. So this is definitely a strange one. It's the fact that they have Sneasler, which could be a Grassy Seed variant, I suppose. I'm like, okay, Farigiraf, a little bit annoying to handle, but I'm thinking that this matchup seems all right. Gouging Fire, Breaking Swipe does seem a little bit tough for them to handle, and Terra Poison Tinglu seems fantastic. They don't have the best ways of breaking through the Tinglu at all. So I was like, okay, I think those are probably the best Pokemon to have here. And the question is, what do I want in the back? I'm like, Thundurus doesn't really do much in this matchup because of the Farigiraf. So I decide, you know what, if I'm committing to the Tinglu, I think Chien-Pao plus Dragonite is probably the best way to go. Urshifu is a little bit weird into Raging Bolt plus Double Grass as well. So I decide I'm going to go for my Tinglu game plan, because I think my Tinglu game plan is probably the best way to handle this matchup. So this time I'm going to try to play better with the Tinglu than I did in the previous one, where I think the Tinglu was actually in a really good spot, and I could have probably like been able to capitalize more if I didn't waste turns by going for like Protect Earthquake and instead going for the Howl plus like Terra Poison, Terra Blast immediately. So here I'm going to try to capitalize more on my Tinglu a bit better here. So that's kind of the game plan. Just try to sweep with Tinglu, or just get as much damage as I possibly can to clean up with the back Chien-Pao plus the Dragonite, which is a little bit hard for my opponent to handle. They lead Incineroar plus the Cornerstone Ogerpon. I'm like, okay, this is completely fine as long as this isn't some weird sword stance Ogerpon. I should be in a pretty decent spot. And I was like debating, okay, do I want to risk like maybe going for the Earthquake here and going for Protect plus the Terra Poison Earthquake, which is definitely a play that I could have went for, or do I just go for a Double Protect to avoid a Fake Out from the Incineroar on either slot? And I think I just decide, hey, I mean, I know Gouging Fire is always protecting. I'm like, I think I just protect the Tinglu, just make it super safe. There really isn't much that they could do here other than if they have Rillaboom, they swap it in. And even if they do that, the next turn I have Terra Poison, Terra Blast plus like Breaking Swipe the following turn. So do go for the Double Protect here. I just want to see what they're going to do. Maybe I could have went for a Terra with the Tinglu and a Breaking Swipe, but I didn't want to take so much damage from an Ivy Cudgel if it's Fake Out Ivy Cudgel into the Gouging, because I would like Gouging to stick around for the Breaking Swipe, as they do go for Fake Out and Ivy Cudgel into the Gouging. I'm like, dang, Earthquake would have been a really nice play here. I did debate about it a decent amount, but here I'm like, okay, no reason to switch. I have 3 rock types, or rock weeks. So here, Breaking Swipe, definitely going to be the play here. And I'm like, okay, what am I doing with my Tinglu? because I can't really Earthquake. I don't want to Earthquake my own Gouging Fire. And I decide to go for a Throat Chop into the Incineroar. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go for a Throat Chop in Incineroar because I can catch a potential switch. I wasn't sure if they were going to go Rillaboom or not. I think I was supposed to Terra Poison the Tinglu and I just forgot to. Like I was supposed to Terra Poison, I just literally forgot. Or I was greedy. I'm pretty sure I just forgot to Terra Poison because even in my head I was like, I'm pretty sure I should be Terra Poisoning, but I didn't. So get a Breaking Swipe off to go for an Ivy Cudgel into the Gouging, and I'm like, okay, that's still fine. I'm able to get a Throat Chop into the Rillaboom, and I get a critical hit, which is nice. I probably should have went for Terra Poison, Terra Blast realistically into the Rillaboom, but that is still fine. I'm able to get a lot of damage in the Rillaboom, and now it gets tricky because we reveal Rillaboom, and we know my opponent has Incineroar, so I could go for a Double Protect here, or I could go on the offense. And the reason I think I'm going on the offense is because is there an Incineroar switch? Like they could read my Double Protect like I did in turn 1, and then they can go for like a switch to Incineroar, and it could get a little bit ugly. So here I'm gonna actually Terra Poison, Terra Blast the Ogerpon because I want damage in the Ogerpon to put in range of like any attack from my Qianpao guaranteed. I know that there's like Sacred Sword and Ice Spinner that KOs, but I'm like, what if they have Incin plus the Terastallization available to get the defense boost? And I also don't want it to get back to Sturdy if possible. So we are able to get a Howl off as they did go for Fake Out into Tinglu, which is completely fine. I'm able to get +1 Tinglu, and now my Tinglu is in a really good spot as they do go for an Ivy Cudgel here into my Gouging and take the knockout. So I don't think it's too bad. I think I got more utilization. The Ogerpon is still -1 attack. It's not really doing as much damage as it could be, and I also do have the Tinglu that's actually healthy and boosted this time. So now Tinglu is actually in a good spot, and now I can go out into Dragonite or Qianpao. And I don't want to really go out into Dragonite because I guess I could protect, but I'm just worried like Grassy Glide plus like Ivy Cudgel's not great, and if they switch to Incin as I do that, it's still not great. So I decide, you know what, I might want to just try to get rid of Terrain here as much as possible. I go Qianpao, it threatens both Pokemon on the opposing side, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to go for Ice Spinner, and I'm going to go for Terra Poison, Terra Blast into Rillaboom. I'm expecting more likely a swap from the Rillaboom into Incineroar for the Intimidate and the Qianpao, and I'm expecting Spiky Shield. They do go for the Spiky Shield. I'm like, okay, they went for Grassy Glide instead, which kind of stinks, but that at least I get rid of Terrain, so I can actually go for Earthquakes. And surprisingly, no Grassy Glide came out from the Rillaboom to break Sash, so I'm like, okay, that ended up being way better than I expected. So I'm able to get rid of the Rillaboom. Grassy Terrain disappears, so the Ogerpon will also not get access to its Sturdy from healing. So I'm like, okay, that's actually a really good turn. And now it's like, okay, what are they going to do here? And it's going to be Incineroar coming out. And I'm like, okay, should be in a pretty good spot here because I don't think they can really do too much right here because of the fact that the Tinglu is so set up at this point, because of the fact that +1 attack, the Ogerpon is at -1 attack currently. They really can't do much damage even with the Sword of Ruin. So I'm like debating about like, okay, what do I want to do? Do I want to Double Protect even, or do I just want to go on the offense? And here I just decide I'm going to go on the offense. I'm okay with Earthquaking my own POW because there is a chance that they might go for the double up into my Tinglu. And I'm okay with the double up in the Tinglu because it shouldn't KO even with the Sword of Ruin. They go for the Terra Rock though, and I'm like, this could get close if it's like Flare Blitz Ivy Cudgel, but because of the Breaking Strike from earlier, I'm like pretty confident I'm going to be able to take the attack. So they get the Embody Aspect, which is defense boost. I could have went for Sacred Sword. I don't think that would even KO the Ogerpon, but that's fine. And they go for the Ivy Cudgel, and I'm like, okay, I should be okay here. They do target down my Tinglu, and they get a critical hit. I'm like, well, and they went for knockoff too, so I was like guaranteed to live with the Tinglu. So I would have just survived, gotten Earthquake, probably a double knockout into the opponent's side. Qianpao still alive with the Focus Sash. It's a 3v1 scenario, and I'm like very likely to win the game. But now it's like a bunch of annoying calls here because the Ogerpon is in range of Sacred Sword. But the question is, do I double up the Incineroar, or do I double up the, or do I go for the Ogerpon? I decide to double up the Incineroar because I'm like, okay, does the Ogerpon decide to spike a shield to break a Sash on my Qianpao? They just saw Ice Spinner, so that's a thing to keep in mind. And I at least should live a Ivy Cudgel with the Dragonite, even with Sword of Ruin, because they're -1 and I have multi-scale. So I go for Sacred Sword, they go for Ivy Cudgel and they target down my Dragonite. And I'm like, okay, I do survive that at least, but this endgame is going to be extremely close depending on who they have in the back. So Scale Shot going to come out into Incineroar. All I need is a 4-hitter, thankfully, because it's not Citrus Berry Incineroar, and Incineroar does go down. And I'm like, okay, what is the final Pokemon? Because the final Pokemon is going to be really important. At least on the bright side, Ogerpon is still in range of Sacred Sword, but there are still a lot of mind games that we have to play depending on what the back is. If it's Sneasler, it should be fine because they don't have the Grassy Seed on Burden Boost, and they reveal the Raging Bolt. I'm like, this is bad because my Dragonite is in range of Thunderclap. So here, I'm not happy about the situation. Like, I am very not happy about the situation, but here I'm like hoping that the Ogerpon will actually go for the Protect, and I'm going to go for Extreme Speed plus the Ice Spinner. There is no Spiky Shield though from the Ogerpon, and I'm like, well, this is bad, but they did actually go for Thunderclap in the Dragonite, hoping for the Scale Shot. So that actually helps out. I'm like, okay, if I knock out the Raging Bolt, I'm in such a good position. I don't knock out the Raging Bolt with the Ice Spinner from the Intimidate from the Incineroar earlier. They go for an Ivy Cudgel into my Chien-Pao, and now my Chien-Pao's a Sash, and I'm like, I am playing a super annoying mind game because they could follow me with Ogerpon, and if they follow me with Ogerpon on a Sucker Punch or Extreme Speed, this is looking not great. Or they can't follow me to Extreme Speed because my Dragonite should be faster than the Ogerpon, but they can follow me to Sucker Punch. And that's kind of what the annoying thing is here, because they also have the ability to Thunderclap with Raging Bolt into my Chien-Pao, so my Chien-Pao never gets an attack off. So there's like a lot of layers to this. They could like follow me with Ogerpon, they could Thunderclap my Chien-Pao to redirect Extreme Speed and hope that I'm going for Sacred Sword. There's like a lot that could happen with mind games this turn, so I'm like, I kind of have to get like some play right here, and I'm just hoping, okay, you just saw that I was going for Extreme Speed. I'm hoping that you are not going to go for Thunderclap into my Dragonite again. They go for a Spiky Shield with Ogerpon to try and catch the Sacred Sword, which is nice, but they actually went for a Double Protect. I'm like, wait, a Double Protect is fine here because I think a double or both protects, and I think like both protects means that unless they get a double with Ogerpon, I should win this game, because even with the leftovers recovery on the Raging Bolt, I'm like pretty sure that it's still in the Extreme Speed range. So I'm gonna go for Sacred Sword and Ogerpon and just hope at this point they don't get the double protect. And even if they get the double, I'm pretty sure that since Extreme Speed knocks out the Raging Bolt, then it's like, okay, as long as I can, you know, maybe KO the Ogerpon with Scale Shot, or maybe Ironhead KOs it or can flinch it, I think that's like my best odds. So I go for the Sacred Sword into the Ogerpon, and I do KO the Ogerpon. I think the fact that they went for Protect with both Pokemon actually just guaranteed them losing, because I think they had to make a call, and the fact that I had to make one less call because of that, because like one of them could Protect, one of them could have followed me, like I'm in a good spot here. So yeah, I'm just able to win guaranteed off that. So really nice. Got annoying when the Tinglu got crit, unfortunately, but thankfully was able to get a few of the turns right to win in the end. All right, we have Becca with a 1635 rating. We have Dondozo, Tatsugiri, Chiyu, Fluttermane, Chien-Pao, and Dragonite. I'm just never happy when I have to face these because, as I said before, I have a very negative streak with Dondozo in this match, with this team. So I'm gonna go with Gouging Fire plus Thundurus, because since they have the special attacks, I think Eerie Impulse is definitely worth it to deal with the Fluttermane. And I'm gonna bring Chien-Pao plus Dragonite in the back. Tinglu could be kind of helpful, but at the same time, like I kind of want more damage into the Dondozo against this team. And I feel like having the pressure is pretty nice, because I actually don't know if they're going to bring the Chiyu guaranteed, because I don't think Chiyu is that good against my team, but we'll see. And yeah, I felt like Thundurus with Thunder Wave could help out against the Dondozo a bit better than the Tinglu could. So we will see the Dragonite and the Chien-Pao lead versus the Gouging Fire Thundurus. I'm like, okay, this is not like a terrible lead. I should just be able to go for a Breaking Swipe plus do I want to go for Thunder Wave or do I want to go for Wall Bolt Storm? I think both are like completely fine here. So even though I'm going to take a lot of damage, a good question also is like, did they even bring the Dondozo mode? They might have thought like maybe I have a Haze on one of these Pokemon and they could go for like the special attackers in the back. So I got to be a little bit cautious here. but I think I just am going to go for Breaking Swipe plus the Wall Bolt Storm. It's pretty safe for the most part. They go for the Protect with the Chien-Pao. I'm like, this shouldn't be Scale Shot Dragonite on this team. It should always be banned. They go for the Extreme Speed and the Thundurus. I'm like, okay, that's really good for me because I'm able to get a Breaking Swipe powered by the Sword of Ruin on the Chien-Pao. And look at all that damage in the Dragonite. That is some pretty good damage. And I am going to be able to get a Wall Bolt Storm off, hopefully, into the Dragonite, which I do. And now the Dragonite's in the Breaking Swipe range, which is good. So here I'm like, it's close. I don't really want to switch here because I'd rather keep Sash and Multi-Scale intact. So I'm just going to go for attacks. Like, the Thundurus was really only to deal with, like, the help out against the lead that isn't Dundozo. And if a bonus, like, paralyzes Dundozo. But really, it was kind of just, like, here. Sitting around, maybe getting some chip damage, really to just help out the rest of the team so it can fight through the Dundozo when the Dundozo's in. So here, go for the Breaking Swipe as they go for the Extreme Speed into my Gouging Fire, and they reveal Ice Shard. So I'm like, okay, they have Ice Shard, which is interesting. So that's good information to note, as they might have dropped one of the Dark moves or the Sacred Sword. They also revealed their Life Orb POW, which is also really interesting. So Breaking Swipe does come out, does chip away at the Chien-Pao and lower its attack, but more importantly, knocks out that Dragonite. So Dragonite gone, and I'm like, okay, is it Flutter Mane Chi-Yu or Flutter Mane Tatsugiri potentially in back, or is it going to be the Dundozo mode? I'm going to go into my own Chien-Pao, as I can just threaten the Sacred Swords as Dundozo comes in. I'm like, okay, we're going to have to play some mind games because, of course, they have the option to protect the Chien-Pao. They have the option to protect the Dundozo and attack with Chien-Pao. They could swap out immediately. They do decide to swap out immediately, and I'm like okay with that because they do end up going out into the Tatsugiri. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna double protect the Scout for like, is there the Tatsugiri immediate switch? I also want to see if like they have Fairy Terastization because they say the Terra for the Dundozo. So I'm like, are you Fairy potentially? Because if they're Fairy, it becomes really annoying. It means my Gouging Fire is basically useless against this, and I'm probably losing to the Terra Fairy Dundozo realistically because I can't really hit it with Breaking Swipe or Scale Shot or Sacred Sword. So I will go for Protect. Like, I feel like on these teams they always run Terra Grass generally because Amoonguss is a little bit annoying for the team, as they do go for the Wave Crash into the Gouging Fire, and I'm like, okay, if they're not Terra Fairy, I think if they had Terra Fairy, they would have went for it by now. I'm going to Breaking Swipe, go for Terra Fairy, and go into Dragonite here. Because they could go for Earthquake and or Order Up, so I'm always going to switch out into Dragonite. And I'm going to go for Breaking Swipe to lower the attack on the Dundozo. Because we either get to reveal its Cobra Cloak and that it is not taking the attack drops, which means it's not leftovers, or that it's potentially lefties, and we're just going to have to try to brute force this the old-fashioned way. So we'll reveal the Terra Fairy Gouging Fire here. And again, this is mainly to counter the Order Up. I don't really need it on the Dragonite here or the Ghost typing on the Chien-Pao, as I do go for a Breaking Swipe into Dundozo. Doesn't really do much damage, but at least it gets the attack drop into Dundozo. But it's Rocky Helmet Dundozo. I'm like, that's a little bit annoying because I do take a lot of damage to Gouging, as they do go for Earthquake. So at least the Terra was actually really useful onto the Gouging part. But now it's like, okay, I'm pretty sure I go down to an attack if that happens, but I am going to go for Howl plus Scale Shot here because Rocky Helmet, I feel like, tends to run the Oblivious set more than the Unaware set. So they go for Order Up into the Dragonite. Doesn't do as much damage, but it is a little bit tricky here, as I do get a Scale Shot off into the Dundozo, and thankfully the first one just gets an immediate crit. I'm like, okay, that's really nice. I just am able to build up this damage because, as I mentioned before, Dundozo with Rocky Helmet, a lot easier to handle, and only get a 4-hitter in response, but overall the damage has been pretty nice into the Dundozo. And now it's like, okay, this is still kind of tricky here because there's not like a great way of maneuvering the spot. It's kind of like calling where the Dundozo's targeting. I'm just going to go for Breaking Swipe, and I am going to go for Protect. And I'm like, okay, are they targeting the Dragonite or are they targeting the Gouging Fire? Because this could get a little bit ugly, as I do go for the Breaking Swipe here into the Dundozo, and the Dundozo does take a bit of chip more nicely and attack drop, but the Dundozo decides to go for the Wave Crash and does target the Gouging. So I'm actually happy that they went for the Wave Crash. They went for Earthquake. The extra recoil is actually kind of nice here because now, again, I don't know what Dundozo set this is. Like, it is really bulky, but I can't tell if like the best play is to just go for the skill shot, or if it's just to go for Sucker Punch Extreme Speed. Here, I think I'm just going to make the super safe play of just going for Sucker Punch plus Extreme Speed. I would have liked to try and maybe pin the Tatsugiri for like a lot of damage to Tatsu, but here I'm like, I'd rather just make sure I get rid of the Nozo because I can still play around a Chien-Pao at the very least. So I do go for the Extreme Speed into the Dundozo. I take a bit of Rocky Helmet, and I will lose my Focus Sash to the Sucker Punch, which is fine as well. But Chien-Pao can get scary depending on its move, and we also still don't know what the Tatsugiri set is. So I'm like, okay, this is not ideal, but I still think that this is fine. The only problem is, even with the attack boost from the Howl on my Dragonite, I don't KO the Chien-Pao that just came in. So I'm like, the Chien-Pao moveset's going to pretty much determine it as well. So here, I'm just going to go for a double protect here and scout for a potential terrestrialization. I want to scout for like Terra Ghost on their Chien-Pao. I want to scout for a Terra Steel or Terra Ghost on the Tatsugiri, because those are going to be like really important towards this end game. So that's basically why I decided to double protect here, because if they're like choice locked on the Tatsugiri, they pretty much are likely to Terra here, because they're in a pretty dire situation if it's like choice, because I could double up the Tatsugiri, and that would be pretty bad for them. So a lot of this is also just going to come down to what is your Chien-Pao moveset. We saw Ice Shard, we saw Protect. You want to assume it has like Icicle Crash or Ice Spinner at the very least. And then is the last move a dark move, or is it Sacred Sword? And I think it's most likely the dark move. They reveal it's going to be Terra Steel. I'm like, okay, if it's Terra Steel Tatsu, it's probably not Sash. But if it's Scarf, this could get ugly. But they go for Protect with Chien-Pao, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting, because Extreme Speed doesn't KO the Chien-Pao at that range. As I do go for a double Protect with Pao, and I'm like, okay. As they go for Dragon Pulse and they target down my Chien-Pao, I'm like, okay, I don't know if it's Scarf or not. I'm kind of assuming it's not, because I think if they were Scarf, they might have went for like the Sucker Punch double up here. So here I'm just gonna double up the Tatsu, and unfortunately they reveal Protect Tatsu, and I'm like, oh no, this is bad. I just doubled up the Tatsu that has Terra Steel Protect, so I'm like, oh no, this is not good. As they do go for the Ice Shard, I was pretty much anticipating the Ice Shard and the Dragonite, and now I'm like, okay, it's just gonna come down to the Chien-Pao moveset. It's just going to come down to the Chien-Pao moveset. They are a Life Orb too, so I'm a bit worried if my Chien-Pao actually goes down to 2 attacks as well. I went for Extreme Speed Sucker Punch because I knew it would KO the Tatsugiri if it was Scarf, so that's why I wanted to cover. But yeah, now I have to go for Sacred Sword now that I know it's not Scarf, and I just have to pray that this Chien-Pao is one, that it is not Sacred Sword, and if it's not Sacred Sword, don't crit or flinch me with Icicle Crash. That's basically what I have to pray for at this point. They go for Sucker Punch, and I'm like, okay, wait, that's really good for me because the Sucker Punch is less damage technically, and I'm able to get a Sacred Sword off into the Tatsugiri. I think they did that because if my Chien-Pao is faster than their Chien-Pao, then like Sacred Sword into their Chien-Pao, Dragon Pulse want to KO my Chien-Pao, and then I get a Sacred Sword outspeed the Tatsugiri the next turn. But now it's just like, please don't crit me or flinch me. Luckily, they go for Sucker Punch again. They don't have any of that happen, and Sacred Sword is able to KO their Chien-Pao. So, became very close down to the wire, but we take another win against Dundozo. Luckily, we were able to kind of brute force. Luckily, it wasn't one of the Terra Fairy sets, and we were able to win, which that one was a bit too close for comfort, but thankfully we were able to break through because the Chien-Pao set wasn't like the standard one. It was a little bit unconventional, which helped out a lot. All right, we have Echoes with a 1712 rating, and we're going to see the team of Incineroar, Golden Go, Raging Bolt, Chien-Pao, Whimsicott, and Urshifu. This matchup is quite a bit strange, realistically, because it's not like the easiest one to handle. The Golden Go is immune to the Eerie Impulse. They have a Chien-Pao, which can be a bit annoying. The fact that they have Tailwind offense immediately off the bat. The Urshifu is going to be a little bit tough, so yeah, it's not like a super easy one. This one's actually going to be quite difficult here. So I was debating about what exactly I want to go with this. I knew I want to lead Gouging Fire, and I decided to lead Urshifu because it's like, okay, I can Heat Crash Stress into Whimsicott, and I don't think they're leading Raging Bolt right off the bat for me. I think Tinglu is actually in a pretty decent spot against this team. It's nice into Golden Go and Raging Bolt as well. And then I'm going to bring the Dragonite in the back because it's like good into the Urshifu and Raging Bolt, especially with like terrestrialization if necessary. So we're gonna see Urshifu plus the Qianpao immediately, and I'm like, okay, this is pretty ideal here because my Gouging Fire, an incredible spot to just click Breaking Swipe. Breaking Swipe is pretty safe, not much that they can do to really punish it. So I decide, hey, I think Breaking Swipe is definitely the play here. And I was just debating about, like, do I target down the Urshifu or do I target down the Qianpao? Because I can target down both, but I decided to go for the Breaking Swipe plus the Close Combat because Urshifu is the bigger threat to my Tinglu in the back. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to target down the Urshifu with Close Combat because there's Sword of Ruin available, so I can knock out the Urshifu potentially after this Breaking Swipe. So get an attack drop onto both Pokemon, and I was like, my Urshifu should be pretty safe here. They go for Icy Wind, and they miss my Gouging Fire, which is huge because now I still outspeed the Qianpao afterwards. So I'm very happy about that. As the speed drop on Urshifu, they go for a Close Combat. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I survived this because of the Breaking Swipe, and as you can see, yeah, my Urshifu is able to take it. They're gonna get a defense drop and also reveal Life Orb. So I get a Close Combat off with my Urshifu, and thanks to those defense drops and the Sword of Ruin, I am able to knock out their Urshifu. So very, very nice turn. I'm able to eliminate one of the biggest threats to my Tinglu just immediately off the bat. And now with this, again, with no speed drop on the Gouging Fire, I can actually outspeed the Qianpao. So they go out into their Gouging Fire, or not Gouging Fire, their Raging Bolt. And I'm like, okay, they reveal it is booster energy with the Raging Bolt. So do I want to go for terrestrialization or not? Because I'm like debating about like, okay, is there like an Incineroar in the back, or is it potentially like the Whimsicott? I think it's most likely Incineroar, but I'm trying to figure out like, okay, I think I go for Terra Fairy, because if I Terra Fairy, that means that I am going to be able to handle the Raging Bolt better, and I'm going to double into the POW here. So I go for the Terra Fairy here with my Gouging Fire. I'm a little bit scared though, because like if it's booster energy, there's no guarantee that this is Calm Mind. This could just be 3 attacks, so this Terra Fairy might not even be the greatest situation for me, because it's not like I can wall out the Raging Bolt as easily with my Gouging. So they go for a Terra, and they revealed their Terra Fairy on the Raging Bolt, and because I Terra Faired my Gouging Fire, I can't hit this with like Terra Poison, Terra Blast. So they go for Protective POW, which is good on them. And yeah, now the Heat Crash is going to fail into the Qianpao, and because of that Icy Wind drop from earlier into the Urshifu, the Raging Bolt's actually able to knock out my Urshifu. So not the greatest position for me, but still not like an awful one, because now I still get a free switch here, and I'm like, okay, do I go out into Dragonite or do I go out into the Tinglu? And I feel like Tinglu is just always a play because of the fact that the Vessel of Ruin is just always going to be active. But the question is, do I want to go for like an Earthquake immediately, or do I just want to go for a simple like Heat Crash plus like maybe get a bit of damage off? Because this one is like, okay, if it's, I don't know if it's Incineroar or if there's something else in the back. So I go for the Heat Crash into the POW, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'm also going to Throw Chop the POW as well. It covers like, okay, it pretty much covers every switch, and if they go in Incineroar, at least they can Parting Shot here into my Gouging Fire the next few turns. So I'm like, okay, that's probably okay. They do reveal Incineroar. I'm like, okay, maybe I could have got a Howl. Maybe I could have went for Protect Earthquake. Like either of those would have been better. As you can see, the Heat Crash and the Throw Chop are not really doing too much damage, and they do reveal T-Bolt into the Gouging Fire, which luckily with the Vessel of Ruin I'm taking, but still not like a super ideal turn, because if I lose Gouging Fire, the Qianpao could actually get scary in the late game. So here I'm like, there's like a call. I'm debating about going for like Protect Earthquake immediately. I'm also debating about potentially just going for like a Howl EQ immediately, because like if they fake out one with Incineroar, I at least either get the Howl attack boost or I get the Earthquake off. Like both are actually pretty decent. So I'm debating about this. Like, do I go for a double Protect? Do I go for Protect EQ? Do I go for just Howl EQ straight out the bat? I'm leaning towards the Protect here on my Gouging Fire, and I decide to go for the Earthquake here, because I'm like, if they fake out, it's probably the Tinglu, but they're probably just going to T-Bolt my Gouging Fire in response. I'm like, okay, that's fine. As I do go for the protect, and there's no fake out, so I'm like, okay, that's really good for me. As they go for a T-Bolt into my Gouging Fire, and they go for a U-turn. I'm like, wait, this is really nice for me, because even though I don't get the damage in Incineroar, like I'm getting damage into the Chien-Pao that's coming in. So that's pretty nice here, because now I'm able to get a really strong Earthquake off with the Sword of Ruin against the Raging Bolt, and again, more damage in the Chien-Pao, so Chien-Pao can just like never switch in, and puts it in range of Extreme Speed potentially. So here I'm like, okay, this is actually really good for me, as I do get the Earthquake, and as you can see, a lot of damage. The Chien-Pao in range of the Extreme Speed, so I'm like, okay, this is pretty good. And now I go for a gut feeling, because I'm like, okay, you could protect Chien-Pao, or you could swap to Incin. You're probably going to just try to target down my gouging at this point. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go for Howl plus EQ here. And that is the play that I decide to go, because I'm like, okay, I'm fine with knocking out my own Gouging Fire if I get all that damage in a Raging Bolt, and that the Tinglu is just able to win in this end game, ideally. So I am going to go for the EQ. As they go for T-Bolt in the Gouging, they don't take the knockout, but I do go for their own EQ here. And even though I am going to knock out my own gouging, it's completely fine. As you can see, so much damage to Raging Bolt. The Gouging Fire will go down, but right now I have a really, really good offensive position where I can try to pin the POW here by going out into Dragonite. And I do live like an Icicle Crash at this range with my Tinglu, and the only way they could really save the Chien-Pao is by going to Instant, but that means they take an Earthquake in response. So here, I can just Extreme Speed the POW and Earthquake, because no matter what they do, I get a knockout or a double knockout potentially if they don't protect here. So I'm in a fantastic offensive position now to just play aggressive. If the Chien-Pao maybe went for an Icicle Crash, like even if they went for Icicle Crash, like as long as they didn't Icicle Crash like Dragon Pulse double up my Tinglu, I felt like I was fine to get the knockout into both. And then it's like Incineroar versus Dragonite plus Tinglu. That's like low health, but I think I probably win that end game since it's a Assault Vest on the Incineroar, so it's not like it's a Citrus Berry or anything, or a helmet. And now I'm like, okay, really good spot here. I go for the Extreme Speed. POW gets knocked out because they know if they switch an Instant, they have to get like a flinch or a crit or something. So yeah, now Dragon Pulse is going to come out, but they target my Dragon, and I'm like, yeah, this is pretty over, because now I can get an Earthquake off into the Raging Bolt. They might have also thought that my Tinglu might protect, and I go for like Scale Shot because the multi-skill Dragonite might be able to survive an attack. But yeah, like I think it's just always Extreme Speed Earthquake and just hope I don't get flinched or crit with the Tinglu. So the very nice here, as Incineroar is going to come out. And at this point, like the Tinglu is just way too healthy to lose the game, and I could just get like damage across the board. So I'm going to go for Scale Shot. The Extreme Speed doesn't really matter too much. So I just go for Scale Shot and Incineroar and start building up the damage, because like even then, like I don't think the Incineroar can knock out the Tinglu. I'm like very confident they can knock out the Tinglu, unless they have like close combat. But they have close combat and they crit my Tinglu, then I still think Scale Shot's always the play, regardless then. But yeah, I go for the Scale Shot. They go for Flare Blitz. They target my Tinglu, and that was a critical hit Flare Blitz, and as you can see, it doesn't do much damage at all. They also take the recoil, and Incineroar does go down. So very nice. I felt like the start was pretty decent, and the end game was pretty decent as well. I think it was just like the turn I doubled up and the Incineroar switched in was like the one awkward one. But yeah, like overall, I felt like I was able to play really well with the Tinglu and just play a bit aggressively, and it's really worked out against my opponent. All right, we have Carlos with a 1730 rating as our next opponent. Bring a team that is similar to a team that Michael Kelsch used to do really well in the last GC. So we have a Moongus, Landispharian, Urshifu, Chien-Pao, Tornadus, and the Golden Go. And here I was like, okay, I remembered some of the sets, but I didn't remember all of them. Like I forgot it was Terra Ghost, Landispharian. They could have also made changes across the board. I remember it being Life Orb Urshifu, I think with Terra Poison. And I do remember Citrus Berry, like Terra Flying, I think it was Golden Go. So here I'm like, okay, what am I leading? I think like Chien-Pao plus Urshifu is not a bad lead here for the most part, because it draws into Landers. I like having Dragonite as like a ground resist or a ground immunity, and I still think Gouging Fire is probably the way to go to pressure the Amoonguss. But yeah, one of the weaknesses again with this team is it doesn't exactly have the best Amoonguss answer, and the problem with like bringing Thundurus in this matchup is like if I bring Thundurus, like the Golden Go can nasty plot on me. I don't do anything to the Landorus, and they also have a Chien-Pao, which might force Terra Waters. So I'm not the biggest fan of bringing Thundurus here in the matchup. I just feel like I'm better off like having my offensive attackers against the Amoonguss potentially and seeing how well I can perform with it. I do have at least the Goggles Urshifu, which is nice because I don't have to worry about Amoonguss Spore into the Urshifu specifically, but it's still a pretty annoying factor, especially with Terra. And I couldn't remember if it was Terra Fair or Terra Water in this matchup, so like I'm just gonna go straight for it. We're gonna see Golden Go Amoonguss lead versus my Urshifu Chien-Pao, which I'm kind of surprised they let Amoonguss Golden Go. Because if I let like Gouging Fire, I feel like Howls are pretty nice here, but across the board, I'm like, okay, I think this is fine. I'm actually gonna go for I was like debating, do I protect Surging Strikes or do I go for like just aggressive play? I don't know if the Amoonguss is gonna Terra or not, but I do know that at least I've Sword of Ruin, and I do know that I have Safety Goggles, so I don't have to worry about the Spore. They go out into Urshifu on their side. I'm like, okay, they go out into their own Urshifu to avoid the Ice Type attack. I go for Protect with Pow because I don't want to get spored here or like lose my Sash. They go for Make It Rain immediately. So my Urshifu is max Spadef or 252 Spadef, so it really doesn't do that much damage. However, I might be in range of the Life Orb Close Combat now, as I do get a big Surging Strikes into the Golden Go for a huge amount of damage. It does reveal it is going to be Citrus Berry on Golden Go, and I'm like, okay, if it's Life Orb Close Combat, my Urshifu definitely goes down. There's really not much that I could really say about it, and the Golden Go, kind of in an interesting spot. They went for to Make It Rain, but I think it was safe because it was like really likely I would click Sucker Punch in the Golden Go because they could Nasty Plot. I'm like, okay, it's not Specs Golden Go, it's not Meadow Coat. We saw it was Citrus Berry, so I'm like, okay, do I just go for like an Aqua Jet attack or do I potentially switch up for the Close Combat? And I'm like, it's not really like an easy per se here because the Urshifu most likely on their side is going to be faster than my Urshifu because it's fast. Like, it's just a slow Urshifu that I have on this team. I decided just to go for the Close Combat and go Dragonite here because I felt like, okay, I think that this is probably like an okay play if they go for certain strikes into my Chien-Pao, which I felt like is great. And even if this doesn't work out, I still think like then I could reposition for Gouging Fire next to Dragonite or Chien-Pao next to Dragonite, and it'd be a better spot than what I currently have. They actually switch out to Golden Go and reveal Tornadus. I'm like, oh, I could have just Aqua Jet plus Ice Spinner, and that would have been really good into the Urshifu. But because of the fact that I switched out my Chien-Pao, I live the Close Combat, which is huge because I get my own Close Combat in Urshifu, and because they took the defense drop, they actually go down. So I was like, I wasn't sure if I was going to live that. I actually thought I was going down to it, but it was like really pleasant to see that my Urshifu was able to tank it, because now, because I get rid of the Urshifu, that's actually really huge. Although this is still kind of a pain because, again, Amoonguss is still going to be a problem, but overall, like, I actually feel like that this is a pretty decent spot here. So they reveal their Amoonguss, and I'm like, okay, is this Bleak Wind plus the Spore? There's not really much to say here. I'm going to go for a Scale Shot into Torn and Aqua Jet potentially, because I think they have to go for a Bleak Wind here pretty much. I think they need to spawn a Dragonite, and I think they can't really protect against the Urshifu, so I'm going to double the Torn. I was debating about, like, looking back at it, do I go for Terra Steel? I think Terra Steel would have been nice here. They reveal Rocky Helmet, so the Urshifu actually just goes down. So I didn't remember if it was Rocky Helmet or if that's a new change. They go for a Bleak Wind, and Dragonite avoids, which is very fortunate, as I am able to get a Scale Shot off into Torn, and Scale Shot isn't a contact move, so I am going to be able to keep my Multiscale, which is really nice, and I'm able to get a good amount of damage into the Torn. So, and that was good, and now my Dragonite's going to go to sleep. And it gets a little bit complicated here because I could still lose this endgame to Golden Go if I'm not careful. And like, they have to get a lot of calls right, but they can still definitely win. Because my Gouging Fire has no attack investment, I can't really knock out the Amoonguss, unfortunately, with Sword of Ruin Heat Crash. And again, I don't know what terrestrialization their Amoonguss is. It could be the Water Terra. So I'm like, okay, it's probably like my best idea is just to eliminate the Torn. I thought about protecting, but I don't think it's ever worth protecting. I think it's always get rid of the Torn immediately, because if I get rid of Torn, that's really nice. So they go for Rain Dance. I'm like, ooh, okay, my Heat Crash are definitely doing a lot less damage. So I go for the Heat Crash into the Torn. I do take the knockout, but now I'm probably getting a sleepy Gouging Fire. And I'm like, okay, this is actually kind of a weird spot because we're playing sleep turns and I still don't know where Terra is because my opponent has not terraed this entire match. So they go for a Spore here into my Gouging. I'm like, okay, they're going to start nasty plotting. There's not really much I can do. But thankfully, because of the Bleak Wind Storm miss from earlier, I do think that I have a safe plan for the next turn. I don't think they're going to Spore my Dragonite because if they've seen the Scale Shot set, they pretty much know I don't have a ground move. So here I'm going to go for a Howl attempt because I know I'm going to stay asleep anyway. And I'm going to go for Terra Steel. The reason I'm going to go for Terra Steel is because I think it's very likely they go for a Nasty Plot Sludge Bomb to break my multi-scale. And if I go for the Terra Steel, I'm going to be able to avoid taking the damage from the Amoonguss and keeping my multi-scale to deal with the Nasty Plotted Golden Go. So I go for the Scale Shot and the Terra Steel here. And I'm like, okay, like, this Amoonguss is still going to be a pain. As I said before, this Amoonguss is definitely just a pain for this team in general. But we'll see. It's Gouging Fire going to take its first turn of sleep. And the Dragonite does wake up, which is fortunate. And we are able to get a Scale Shot off into the Golden Go. But it's doing a little bit less damage than I thought. I was kind of hoping that the Scale Shot was going to put it in range of a potential Breaking Swipe. But yeah, it doesn't actually do as much damage as I was hoping for, but at least it might force the Amoonguss to always go for Rage Powder in the following turns. So we will get a speed boost as they do go for the Nasty Plot with the Golden Go. Pretty much not surprising. And the Amoonguss is going to go for the Sludge Bomb into my Terra Steel Dragonite. I'm like, okay, that's really good. But now there's still mind games that have to be involved here. I'm going to protect the Dragonite because I'm like, okay, I want to see if it's like Terrestrialization coming out here. Or if they go for a Protect with the Golden Go and try to Spore my Dragonite, which I thought was two plays that were decently likely here. So I want to scout for like one of those plays. Also, if they go for a Make It Rain here to break the multi-scale and get the damage into Gouging Fire, I'm like, okay, if they do decide to go for that, then I am going to be able to survive like Shadow Balls the upcoming turn from the Golden Go because it's only +1. So I also can buy turns for my Gouging Fire to wake up potentially. Because if Gouging Fire wakes up, I think I'm in a great spot. So we'll go for the Howl and the Protect because I could also do like Chien Pao swap or swap into Chien Pao the next turn. Scale Shot and +1 with Sword of Ruin might knock out the Amoonguss. They go for a Rage Powder with the Amoonguss. And they are going to go for a, well, Gouging stays asleep. And they do go for a Shadow Ball. I'm like, I think I lived a Shadow Ball, right? It's +2 Shadow Ball, but it actually kills my Gouging. So I'm like, wait, that's a lot of special attack on the Golden Go. Because that, I was surprised that actually knocked out. And now it's like, okay, this is still a very weird spot. I got to go Chien Pao. And now we still play the same mind game the next turn. It's like, okay, does the Golden Go protect and they Terra the Amoonguss? Or, because I still don't remember what the Terra was on the Amoonguss. It could be like Terra Fairy or it could be Terra Water. So I'm like, okay, if it's Terra Water, it might be Sacred Sword here. If it's Terra Fairy, it might be just Ice Spin or Iron Head. And I'm like, I really just couldn't remember what this Amoonguss was. I just really couldn't remember what this Amoonguss was. I think I commit to it being Terra Water and I just go for a Sacred Sword into Amoonguss as well as like Scale Shot because I do think the Golden Go can still likely protect here. On the bright side, I know at least the Amoonguss can't be Rocky Helmet because the Torn was Rocky Helmet. So I go for Sacred Sword and the Scale Shot here into the Amoonguss. And they make a crazy, just like no Terra, no Rage Powder. It's like they could have lost so much here, but Scale Shot going to come out into the Amoonguss. No Terra. Absolutely crazy for my opponent, but it worked out for them. I only got a 4-hitter on the Amoonguss as well, which, yeah, this is going to get very dicey now. As I do get a Sacred Sword off into Amoonguss. I'm like, it's not Citrus Berry, which is interesting. They go for a Shadow Ball into the Dragonite, which is able to break my multi-scale, and they go for Spore in a Pound. I'm like, okay. I think the Dragonite's in range of Make It Rain, but I should survive a +1 Make It Rain. It's just really tough because there's also the chance that if they raid the Dragonite to protect, you know, gain the Golden Go to -1 attack or only +1 special attack, reducing it, then the Amoonguss could go for a Sludge Bomb double up. There's like quite a few calls. Like this has been a bunch of just like calls on calls on calls here. And now I'm like, okay, I Ice Spinner the Golden Go because I think Ice Spinner should KO the Golden Go. What am I doing with the Dragonite? Am I protecting or not? I'm like, I don't think you should Sludge Bomb the Chien-Pao. Like, I think it's insane to Sludge Bomb the Chien-Pao. They go for Terrestrialization finally. I'm like, okay, what is the Terrestrialization? If it was water, you should have went for earlier. And then it reveals it's Fairy. So they were scared of the Iron Head from the Dragonite from earlier. So here I'm like, okay, if that's the case, I think I'm fine depending on what they click here. And they clicked Rage Powder, so I'm like, okay, there's no Sludge Bomb, so I should be in a pretty okay spot because the Chien-Pao is going to take its first turn of sleep, but the Golden Go is going to go for Make It Rain. And I'm like, okay, I'm like pretty sure the Dragonite should survive the next Make It Rain because it's only +1 special attack and I am Terra Steel on the Dragonite, as the Chien-Pao will hang on with its Focus Sash. And now I should be okay to just click Iron Head into the... I could either Iron Head the Golden Go or I could Iron Head the Amoonguss. So I'm just going to go for an Ice Spinner and an Iron Head. And I'm like, at this point, I don't think they're protecting and the Golden Go. So I'm just going to go for an Iron Head and I'm just going to go for an Ice Spinner. They're going to go for a Rage Powder, which is completely fine because now I'm going to be able to KO the Amoonguss guaranteed. And as long as the Golden Go doesn't knock out my Dragonite, I should win the game. And there's also a chance for Chien-Pao to wake up. And if Chien-Pao just wakes up, I do win the game as well because Ice Spinner should KO the Golden Go at the range it's at. So Chien-Pao does wake up and it does get the Ice Spinner off. So they could have also went for Shadow Ball into the Dragonite as well this turn and then just hope for the 3-turn with Chien-Pao. So even though like I was in the lead for like quite a start of the game, a lot of hard calls just because against Amoonguss, it's very tricky to navigate with this team. But luckily we are able to win, thankfully. Luckily it wasn't like super hard calls like at the end as well. But I mean, there were a lot of hard calls. All right, we have 17-19 rated opponent and it's the exact same 6 as the previous one, but I also have to guess, like, did they change any of the sets or did they keep it the same? So we have Golden Go, Landorus, Varian, Tornadus, Urshifu, Chien-Pao, and Amoonguss. And the previous time I actually was a little bit scared of the Landorus. And I still think like my initial game plan is still generally fine for the most part, like Chien-Pao plus Urshifu, but I'm not 100% sure if it's the call. I just know that I don't want to lead Torn or lead Gouging because if I lead Gouging and activate the booster energy and they lead something like Torn Lando, then I could potentially be wasting my booster energy, so I don't think it's ever worth it. Here I'm also debating about like if Ting Lu is ever worth it if they go to Golden Go route again, but I think I just go with the same 4 and I'll probably be fine. The only question is, did they change any of the sets? And the Amoonguss Terra is going to be a big one because if it's like Terra Fairy, which I'm guessing it was Terra Fairy on the original set, then it's still going to be a bit tricky because I don't have the best ways of hitting Terra Water or Terra Fairy with this team. But at least I can hit Terra Fairy super effectively. But we're going to see Torn Amoonguss lead, and this is a very interesting lead. So I'm like, okay, I don't think you're Terra Water on the Amoonguss, so I'm like, okay, maybe my priority should be to get rid of the Amoonguss because Ice Spinner and a Surging would probably KO the Amoonguss, which would be nice here. So I'm debating, and I'm just gonna go for it because if they go for Tailwind, I should be able to get an Ice Spinner Surging Strikes off into Amoonguss and potentially pick up the knockout, depending on if it's Citrus Berry or not. I don't know if they run like Covert Cloak or something. And if they go for Bleak Wind, I'll be able to survive because I have very specially defensive Urshifu. So again, Ice Spinner off as they go for Bleak Wind, and that's completely fine. The only unfortunate part is they get a speed drop on Pal, and that's actually a very bad speed drop because it kind of means the Torn can actually go for Bleak Wind the next turn with no consequences. Like if I didn't get sped drop, they would probably be forced to Tailwind or maybe Protect even. So yeah, that's kind of annoying. But overall, getting rid of the Amoonguss is still fantastic because you know how much problems I had in the last game with Amoonguss. So I'm like, okay, not the worst, but not the greatest either. As they go on to Urshifu, and I'm like, I might just lose to Urshifu now, realistically, because they can go for like Tailwind, Surging. They could go for Tailwind Close Combat. This is not exactly super easy to handle. I'm like, okay, I think my best call out here is to probably just try and put the Urshifu into maybe a Aqua Jet range. Because the problem is they can just go for Bleak Wind. they can actually just go for Bleak Wind Surging now, actually. That's the problem. They could go for Bleak Wind Surging because of the speed drop. They might have been forced to Tailwind the prior turn because that means like Pow could have threatened an Ice Spinner and a Torn. But now like I have to go for Sucker Punch plus Aqua Jet, get damage in Urshifu. And by the way, I'm just like not doing any damage to this Urshifu. So I'm definitely not putting it into range of Extreme Speed. They go for Bleak Wind. They hit both. The Pow survives, but like at this point, like... yeah, they were able to go for the play because of the Bleak Wind speed drop, and I'm like, okay, that's unfortunate, but that's how it goes sometimes with Bleak Wind. And Surging Strikes is going to come out into the Chien Pao, and Chien Pao does go down here, and I get to see if it's like Life Orb or not on the Urshifu, and this time, the Urshifu doesn't reveal it is Life Orb, so I'm like, okay, that's actually interesting, since it's not Life Orb Urshifu, might have a chance at least. I go into Gouging here, plus the Dragonite, I'm like, what's your last Pokemon? Because I don't know what their last Pokemon is, but I feel like I'm going to be losing the game if they brought like Golden Go in the back instead. Because like, if it's Landorus, I could be fine, but granted, Rock Slide's not a super ideal thing to deal with. And I'm like, okay. I think here I go for a Scale Shot and Howl into the Torn slot. And the reason I go for the Howl plus the Scale Shot is because I'm expecting either Tailwind or they're gonna go for a Rain Dance, and I don't really have the best place to cover any of those options, unfortunately, because they're gonna go for Terastization and they're gonna reveal Terra Water. I'm like, oh no, this is really bad, because I'm like, okay, the Surging Strikes is gonna do so much damage here, right? Like, I might live with Gouging since it's not like Life Orb. It could be Mystic Water, I suppose, but yeah, now I'm just in a really bad spot. If I went for Scale Shot into the Urshifu, maybe it's better, but I wasn't 100% sure if like Urshifu could potentially switch out here. But yeah, they go for the Surging Strikes into the Gouging, and as you can see, it's doing a ton of damage into the Gouging, and I'm like, okay, at least I survived with Gouging, but I don't know what this Urshifu set is. Like, if it's Scarf, it could be a bit annoying. Like, I went for Scale Shot because it's like, if they went for Rain Dance and I KO'd a Torn with like a 5-hitter from Scale Shot, then it's like, okay, I can maybe the Urshifu Scarf, potentially, or maybe not Scarf and doesn't have Aqua Jet. Like, that's basically what I was hoping for. Torn goes down to the Scale Shot, but it's like, yeah, this is probably over, because I'm assuming they can just Aqua Jet, and whatever the last Pokemon is probably cleans me up. If it's Pow, it's maybe I could get a Mind Game right against Pow, and if it's Dragonite, it's looking pretty over. But they do reveal the Golden Go. I'm like, yeah, there's not really much I can do here about it. I think at this point I'm just praying the Urshifu doesn't have the Aqua Jet. I think that's like my only hope here, because if it's Scarf, it outspeeds me. If it's Scarf, I have to go for Extreme Speed Crit, and I don't even know if Extreme Speed Crit would knock out the Urshifu at this point. So I'm just gonna go for a Scale Shot. I'm just gonna go for a Heat Crash. Luckily, there is still technically hope, because like it depends on how well the Golden Go takes the attack. So they go for Aqua Jet here into my Gouging Fire, and I'm like, okay, yep, that's to be expected. I am gonna go for the Scale Shot to, you know, if I land, I get the guaranteed KO into Urshifu, which I think is like important. I think Extreme Speed Crit could have also helped out, but if I don't get the Extreme Speed Crit, I just like absolutely lose. Like, I absolutely lose. Like, at least with this, even though like there's the case, I still have a move called Iron Head, so I can flinch the Golden Go if necessary. So that's basically the thing here. As the Urshifu goes down, I do take another speed rise for a defense drop. Defenses don't matter at this point, as they go for Shadow Ball. And I'm like, okay, wait, they went for Shadow Ball, not Nasty Plot. That's fine. They are able to do a bit. And I'm like, how much am I really doing to this Golden Go? Like, do I have to go for the Iron Head immediately, or do I have to go for the Scale Shot? And I'm like, okay, I think first we go for the Scale Shots, because in my head, I'm like, okay, Scale Shot has like better chances to crit, as well as getting a 5-hitter. Like, I need to get lucky in this game either way to win. So I decide, you know what, I'm gonna Scale Shot, and unless like I'm forced to Iron Head, I won't go for the Iron Head until I'm absolutely forced to. So I go for the Scale Shot, and as you can see, it's not really doing too much damage. It's not like Iron Head was doing crazy amounts of damage either. So I go for the Scale Shot here into the Golden Go, because I know the Golden Go can't knock me out. Unfortunately, we only get 4 hits this time, which is like, I do need every hit possible at this point, because it's like my only chance to win. And they go for Nasty Plot, which is a good play, because it's like, okay, 2 Shadow Balls, like, will KO the Dragonite. You might as well just go for a Nasty Plot in case I make a misplay of going for like a Protect here on Dragonite for some reason. So here I'm like, yeah, I pretty much have to just Iron Head, flinch the Golden Go, and I'm like, okay, if it's maybe 2 Iron Heads can knock out the Golden Go if it's not Citrus Berry, and if it's Citrus Berry, I need 2 flinches. So Iron Head actually does a little bit more than I thought to the Golden Go. It does reveal that Citrus Berry on the Golden Go, and I'm like, okay, there's one, and I'm like, okay, I need 1 more. I think if I hit 1 more, I think I just KO with the next Iron Head. So we will go for another Iron Head, and I'm like, can we get 2? We do not get 2, unfortunately. As Shadow was able to knock out my Dragonite, and it is going to be rough. So yeah, it is a little bit tough against this. Maybe I should be bringing Thundurus in this matchup because of the way they're playing it. I'm really surprised not to see like POW or like Landers at all. So I was like, okay, maybe Thundurus is like maybe more useful here. I don't know if maybe they have Mental Herb on the Amoonguss instead. It could be like Mental Herb Amoonguss since we haven't seen any Citrus Berries, so that could be a thing. But yeah, I wasn't able to unfortunately take as much offensive pressure, especially with the Bleak Wind speed drop at turn 1. And I did bring it down to like a winnable game with Iron Head, but we didn't get the Iron Head flinches. All right, we have a 1662 rated opponent with the Baxcalibur, Incineroar, Rillaboom, Fluttermane, Wellspring, Ogerpon, and Heatran. If I'm not mistaken, this is like a really old team from Regulation F that got like 2nd place, I think, at a regional. I think Pado used this in a team. I think like way back in the first series of Regulation F. And yeah, I'm like, okay, what should I do against this team? Because Baxcalibur is kind of an interesting mon because of the fact that it's actually pretty decent against me offensively. Like a Scale Shot can threaten the Chien-Pao if it's Scale Shot, and Icicle Spear is actually going to really threaten the Dragonite and the Tinglu and the Thundurus. So not exactly the easiest one. And then they have the Heatran, which most likely is Magma Storm, and Magma Storm Heatran is always going to be a bit of a pain to handle. So trying to figure out what I go here. All I know is that I definitely want Gouging because Breaking Swipe and Heat Crash are pretty decent here in this, especially because at least if we could go for a Breaking Swipe into the Baxcalibur, unless it's Clear Amulet, it becomes a lot less of a threat. So I'm actually going to lead Gouging Fire plus Urshifu and have Chien-Pao and Dragonite in the back. I don't think Thundurus is that good in this matchup. It's like fine, but it doesn't really apply that much offensive pressure. And the Tinglu's like okay, but it's not like amazing either, I would say. It takes quite a few turns to actually get damage into my opponent's side, so I decided just to go with the Chien-Pao and the Dragonite in the back. It's good into the Ogerpon stuff. Like, it covers a lot of terrestrialization, so yeah, I decided just to lead the Gouging Fire and the Urshifu versus the Baxcalibur and the Incineroar. And I'm like, okay, I have no idea. Did they change the Baxcalibur? Like, I didn't know the full details of this team. I'm like, you know, it could be Swords Dance Baxcalibur for all I know. It could be just Ice Shard with 3 attacks. So I'm like, is it worth risking any of these Pokemon immediately? Specifically the Gouging Fire, because the Gouging Fire is the one that's like heavily threatened at the moment. So I'm like, okay, am I going for Double Protect or am I going for like Breaking Swipe? I just decided to go for Double Protect because I think it's like a lot less likely that they run Swords Dance on the Baxcalibur. And if they run Swords Dance on the Baxcalibur, they're still threatened by attacks the next turn with like the Breaking Swipe, the Close Combat, a Howl, Surging Strikes, more if they terrestrialize. So yeah, I'm just going to go for Double Protect. I can also Terra Fairy if I have to with the Gouging Fire, which is also not a bad play that I can have. So they do go for terrestrialization turn 1, so I'm very happy. As they go for Terra Poison, I'm like, okay, Terra Poison, not that big of a deal. Okay. Because it's not like a super incredible defensive typing against this, because I can still Breaking Swipe the Baxcalibur if it is going to be one of the loaded dice sets. So I do go for the Double Protect here, as they do go for a Fake Out with the Incineroar into the Urshifu, and the Baxcalibur is going to go for Glaive Rush. And I'm like, okay, Glaive Rush. And I haven't seen that move in a while, but that usually means it's probably Clear Amulet on the Baxcalibur. So here, I'm like, I don't remember the Glaive Rush mechanic of whether at this point, because like, again, I'm a bit hazy. I'm just gonna go for Breaking Swipe. How? I'm like, if the Pokemon fail to use the move, do I still get the double damage? I don't think that's the case. I think they have to use the move for me to get the double damage. But I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go for Breaking Swipe and Surging Strikes. And it doesn't really work out incredibly well here because I don't take the knockout on Baxcalibur. I didn't get an attack drop on the Baxcalibur because it's Clear Amulet, but they went for the Glaive Rush into the Urshifu. So I'm like, okay. They also might have been scared of Terra Fairy, which I also had on the Gouging Fire, which I did consider as well. And even if I lost Gouging Fire, I don't think it's like that bad because they already used their terrestrialization. So I'm like not as worried. So here I'm like, okay, pretty sure with double damage, I should KO the Excalibur here, right? Like, I'm pretty sure. So I'm just gonna go for a Surging Strikes into the Incineroar as they go for an Ice Shard into the Urshifu. I thought they were gonna protect just so that they, you know, they take double damage. But then again, it's not like they could pressure the Urshifu really. So I get the last ditch Ice Shard play. I do go for the Surging Strikes into the Incineroar, which does reveal the Citrus Berry, but I'm like, okay, after the Breaking Swipe damage, I'm pretty sure you don't live the Surging Strikes. So Incineroar is going to go down, and that's basically the best I could have asked for because right now I've taken such a huge offensive initiative, and right now I'm like in the driver's seat of offense, right? Because the only thing they've really done is that they've chipped my Urshifu to really low, but their Excalibur is pretty low as well as like Incineroar is gone. They go Flutter Mane here, and I'm like, okay, it's not booster energy, so it's probably Specs then. And if it's Specs, it gets a bit concerning because the damage output is definitely going to be tricky. And the Excalibur is still an offensive threat that I'm going to have to worry about. So here I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to Howl and I think I'm going to Detect with Urshifu because like I think I could see Dazzling Gleam plus Glaive Rush into my Gouging Fire. And the reason I go for this is because I negate the Intimidate that the Incineroar went for earlier. I get the +1 attack with both Pokemon, and then I can threaten like Aqua Jet Heat Crash into the Flutter Mane for a knockout, which I think is like my best play here. So I go for the Howl with the Gouging Fire and the Detect. So again, back to neutral with both my Pokemon. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think you can knock on my Gouging Fire here. They go for Dazzling Gleam, which is to be expected, because they want to get rid of my Urshifu. My Gouging Fire is able to eat that up, and they do go for the Glaive Rush. So I'm like, okay, I'm in a really good spot now. I should just be able to go for a Heat Crash plus a Aqua Jet. And I don't have to worry as much about Excalibur because I always do threaten it with Extreme Speed from my Dragonite. So I'm not like too worried about that at this point. I'm more worried about like getting rid of the other slot and maybe seeing like, okay, is it Heatran in the back? Is it the Wellspring Ogerpon? Because I want to figure it out. Because if it's Wellspring Ogerpon, I don't think I'm like really, I could be in a little bit of trouble because they could have a faster follow me to my Extreme Speed. So I would have to get like one skill shot off somehow, but yeah, like at this point, I think that this is probably the best position I could ask for. I go for the Aqua Jet into Flutter Mane, do some decent damage, but the Heat Crash is more important. Takes out the Flutter Mane. I'm like, okay, we get rid of Flutter Mane. So Flutter Mane's gone. They're down to their last two Pokemon, and I'm probably losing my Urshifu here. And they do go for the Glaive Rush, and they do knock out to the Urshifu. So Urshifu, you have done a fantastic job here. And let's just see who's in the back. If it's Heatran, I could have saved the Urshifu, but I also have Sacred Sword on Qianpao, so I don't think it's too bad. As they do bring out the Heatran, I'm like, okay, I think I'm in a pretty good spot at this point. Like, we know they can't Terra. The access to the Sacred Sword is going to be nice, and now I'm just like, okay, I think I just go for a Protect and I go for an Extreme Speed because I'm going to try and knock out the Excalibur here because of the fact that I would like to get Qianpao next to my Gouging Fire if possible because I can go for Howl Sacred Sword for more damage in the Heatran because I can't really damage the Heatran up with these two Pokemon right now. So I'm just going to go for the Extreme Speed and the Protect because they could Flash Cannon my Gouging Fire here. It's not like Heatran can really threaten the most amount of damage into my Dragonite. They go for a good Protect play with their Excalibur. And at this point, I'm like, okay, that's completely fine as I do go for the Extreme Speed into the Protect. And the Heatran is going to fire off a Flash Cannon into my Gouging Fire. So here it's like, okay, that's still a pretty good turn for me. I should be able to get the Extreme Speed knockout. And just in case, I am going to go for a Breaking Swipe in the off chance I don't. I feel like I should, but I do barely miss a knockout on Excalibur, so I'm very happy I just go for Breaking Swipe. Also, just getting the extra damage into the Heatran is just very nice here. So I go for the Breaking Swipe, Excalibur goes down, the Heatran takes a little bit of chip damage, and that is pretty solid. So Excalibur will faint, and now it's just a Heatran by itself, and if I get rid of the Heatran, I do win the game. So the Heatran, gonna go for a Magma Storm, and they missed my Dragonite, but like, was it the biggest Magma Storm in the world? Not really. But yeah, like, I guess we could have played some interesting mind games the following turn with Qianpao, but yeah, I'm just going to go for damage really into the Heatran as I go for the Howl. to boost up my attack, because if they decide to protect for some reason, then I am able to punish it. I do go for the Howl Scale Shot because I'm like, okay, if I get this +1 Scale Shot, I probably don't need the +1 Sacred Sword anymore, because the Heatran should be in range of the attacks at this point. So I do go for the Scale Shot. I get a 5-hitter into the Heatran, which actually does some pretty good damage at +1, which is really nice here, as the Dragonite will get the boost, and the Heatran is going to get a Magma Storm off into my Dragonite. And yeah, like, even if you like Protect Stall, it is completely fine at this point, because I still have access to Howl. They do reveal the leftovers on the Heatran. I'm like, okay, I still think Chien Pao Sacred Sword will clean up the end game. So here I'm like, I just need damage at this point. I'm going to go for Howl, or no, I'm going to go for Protect and Extreme Speed, because I want to guarantee that I get next to Chien Pao so I can get the Howl. If they protect the Heatran, then I just get to click Howl Sacred Sword, and if they like attack with Heatran, I still think I do the same thing, but the Heatran's even more weaker. So they do go for the Protect. So Dragonite will fail the Extreme Speed into the Heatran, but overall, like, Chien Pao comes in, I click Howl, I click Sacred Sword. We know they can't Terrasilize because they already Terrasalized the Excalibur earlier, and that will be able to seal it up. So felt overall like there were maybe a few risks I did take, like not tearing my Gouging Fire earlier against the Excalibur, but I do think that it paid off, and I was able to basically get a lot of damage straight up, especially with Urshifu. They really didn't bring their Wellspring Ogerpon, which is like one of their best ways of controlling the pacing, as well as no Rillaboom. So none of the grass types meant Urshifu kind of just was able to go in, because they didn't have like a safe switch into Flutter Mane. So we will get a Howl plus Sacred Sword, KO the Heatran, and that will be able to seal the Heatran. So am able to take the win there, which is nice. And yeah, just was able to get a really great start with the Gouging Fire Urshifu lead, and then clean up the Heatran with the back of my Dragonite plus my Chien Pao. Alright, we have Daniel with a 1655 rating, and we see Landorus Incarnate, Urshifu, Goldengo, Incineroar, Amoonguss, and Roymoon. This is the team that won Toronto Regionals. And this is a really weird matchup, because there's a lot of factors I have to keep in mind. One is going to be the Goldengo, which is already pretty threatening to my team, especially with Tailwind. They have a Roymoon with Booster Energy with Terra Poison, which is actually really annoying for me to handle, because of the fact that Roymoon gonna be a little bit hard to remove, and then Breaking Swipe is just really tough for me to handle. And if I go for Terra Fairy Gouging, they could pin it with the Goldengo, Make It Rain. So not an easy one. The Landorus is also super threatening. I gotta worry about the Amoonguss. There's just like so much that I just have to worry about. So there were a lot of leads I was considering. I considered Gouging plus D-Knight as a lead, because of the fact that like I could at least maybe Terra Steel the Dragonite early on, but I didn't like this lead. I think later on, I'm like, I could maybe bring the Tinglu, because Tinglu could be nice here against the Goldengo, Incineroar, and like if I Terra Poison, it's like okay against Urshifu, but I gotta watch out about the Landers. There's not like a super good thing to deal with. I just know I should bring my Spadef Urshifu. Like, I know Urshifu is definitely being brought to threaten the Amoonguss, and I could maybe force a Terrasalization immediately. I decided in the end to go with Urshifu Gouging, which I think is like my safest lead because of the special defense. I need Dragonite so I can deal with the Landorus Incarnate, switch around. And I decided last Pokemon between Tailwind and Thundurus, and I just go with Thundurus as the last. The reason I decided to go Thundurus as the last is because I think I need a taunt for the Amoonguss, as well as like a way to help out against like their own Urshifu if it gets a bit out of hand in the late game. So yeah, I felt like it was the best. I have Eerie Impulse Pressure against the Landorus Incarnate, and I have a Make It Rain switch in once again. So we see the Urshifu plus the Roymoon lead immediately versus my Urshifu and my Gouging Fire. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. It's not like that bad. I don't know if they're going to go for Breaking Swipe or if they're going to go for a Tailwind immediately. So I think they're probably going to go for Breaking Swipe, but I don't want to really, if I Terra Fairy and I go for like a close combat Breaking Swipe and Urshifu, I just lose guaranteed. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go for Breaking Swipe and Surging Strikes into the Roymoon. There's a chance they go for Terra Poison, and if they don't, it's not the greatest, but because at least they take a Breaking Swipe most likely, because I think it's the less likely they protect here. So they go for the Tailwind here, and I'm like, okay, that's Roymoon is taking a decent amount of damage, so that's not like terrible for me. As they do go for the Surging Strikes with the Urshifu into my Gouging Fire, and I'm like, okay, I am taking a lot of damage. This could still be a bit spooky, but I think I could probably play around this with the Thundurus because I at least get the Breaking Swipe off. I lower the attack output of both of these Pokemon. I get a crit into Urshifu, which is also a nice bonus. But that means the close combat is doing a lot less to my own Urshifu, which is huge. And I am able to get a Surging Strikes off into the Roaring Moon for some decent damage. It's not like the best damage, but it's decent damage. So here I'm like, that's really close with the next Surging KOs. I think the next Surging will barely miss it, but I kind of have to play on the offense, right? There's not much I can do. At least on the bright side, I'm like, okay, if I can pin this situation, I could get Dragonite in against the Urshifu and probably be in a good spot. So here I am just gonna go for, I don't know why I decided to go for Howl. There really was not much to go for Howl. I could have went for another Breaking Swipe just to get more chip damage, but I think the idea I had behind Howl was because like if I got the Howl off, then like I could still go for a neutral close combat, which would be pretty big here if I get the Howl off. But they actually decided to go for Breaking Swipe, and I get crit with the Gouging Fire, but thankfully I lived on 1 HP because that would have been bad if the Surging Strikes redirected into Urshifu. But yes, Surging Strikes will finish off my Gouging Fire, and Surging Strikes will come out into the Roaring Moon. I'm like, it looks really close. If I miss it, it's not the big deal because I'm pretty sure Aqua Jet should KO it, and then I could go for like Aqua Jet Scale Shot. So it's not like the worst. And I do miss it barely, but that's fine. So now I can go out into Dragonite or Thundurus, and I'm like debating about like, okay, which one do I go out into? I actually decided to go Thundurus here because the Aqua Jet plus Wall Bolt Storm is really hard for my opponent to switch into more than the Scale Shot. Because like if they have Golden Go, they can easily switch out into it. While if they have a Moongus, like I could just taunt it the next turn, it's not too bad. And Wall Bolt Storm, like I know will knock out Urshifu if it's single turret. While if I brought out Dragonite, a Scale Shot won't knock out the Urshifu unless I get like, I think a critter, because I don't think a 5-hitter would get the KO. So yeah, I just bring out the Thundurus and I'm like, okay, Aqua Jet, Wall Bolt Storm should be pretty safe. If they go for Terastization, it's Terra Fire Urshifu normally, so I should be able to threaten the Wall Bolt Storm into potential Aqua Jet the next turn. I also still have Thunder Wave pressure as well that they have to fear, so a lot of things that could go wrong. But they do switch out the Urshifu, and then they decide to bring out the Incineroar. So I'm like, okay, even with the Intimidate, the Aqua Jet should still KO the Roaring Moon at the range, and I get a free Wall Bolt Storm into the Incineroar. And the Incineroar is not like super threatening because of the fact that I do have Covert Cloak on this Thundurus. Aqua Jet does take the knockout into the Roaring Moon. I think they were like trying to catch maybe a Thunder Wave into the Urshifu, which makes sense, as I am going to be able to get a Wall Bolt Storm into the Incineroar, and it actually does some really good damage. Like that's actually some really good damage. As now it's like, okay, who are you going to bring out next? Because you're not in the greatest spot here, because Urshifu and Thundurus are still in a pretty dominant position. Like you could go Golden Go, you can't get a knockout realistically here unless you double up the Thundurus slot. But we see Landers coming. I'm like, Landers coming is really interesting here because I don't think the Landers accomplishes much. So I'm going to go for Protect, and I'm going to go for Eerie Impulse because I know I can live a double up from the Incineroar and the Landers with the Eerie Impulse. And I don't want them to go for like fake out Earth Power into another Earth Power into my Urshifu to take the knockout. So I feel like, oh, I just go for the Eerie Impulse here, and I think it's super safe. Like, kind of surprised the Landers came out because I don't think it actually does that much here. And I'm like, okay, as long as I set up, I think this position for my, I think as long as I set up the position for Dragonite, I should be in a really good spot. As the Landers goes for the Terra, and I'm like, okay, goes for the Terra Steel. I'm like, I think I'm in a pretty decent position at this point. So we'll go for the Detective Urshifu, as the Eerie Impulse will be fired off into the Landers. And I'm like, okay, what did they go for? Because they didn't go for Fake Out. They went for a Sludge Bomb into my Thundurus, so good play on their part. But as you can see, it really doesn't do much damage thanks to the Eerie Impulse. And they go for the Flare Blitz. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. So here I'm like, what are they going to do? Are they going to switch out the Landers into Urshifu? Because that is a little bit risky. And here I'm like, I just go for Wall Bolt Storm and Surging Strikes. It's pretty safe. It covers for any switch. The Urshifu can't really switch into the Wall Bolt Storm. And I get the damage into the Landers with the Wall Bolt Storm to put in range of close combat, even at -2 attack because of the Breaking Swipe plus Intimidate. So here, I pinned the Incineroar slot for a knockout, and I'm like, okay, that's pretty good. And even if the Landers attacks, like, at worst, they crit me, which would not be ideal, but If they go for Sludge Bomb into my Thundurus, I do live based on the previous damage. And they go for Earth Power, they don't KO my Urshifu. So they go for the Sludge Bomb into my Thundurus. As you can see, I do survive a Wall Bolt Storm. I do miss the Incineroar, which kind of stinks a bit because that means that was one less Rocky Helmet damage I had to take with my own Urshifu, because the Incineroar is going to be the Rocky Helmet. So a bit unfortunate, but like not the worst here. So now I'm like, okay, I think I'm in a pretty good spot to potentially just seal up this game, because my Urshifu with 252 special defense should survive the Earth Power at -2 from this Landorus. And their Urshifu has to come in, and I can go for a Thunder Wave into Urshifu on their Urshifu and go for close combat into Landorus. I'm like pretty sure I take the knockout into their Landorus with -2 close combat. And as long as like I Thunder Wave the Urshifu and don't miss, they're either forced to Aqua Jet my Thundurus, take the knockout into Thundurus to prevent Urshifu from getting paralyzed, which means my Urshifu is free to KO the Landorus unless they go for like, unless they get a crit, because it's shouldn't be able to pick up the knockout. As you can see, they do go for the Aqua Jet. Otherwise, like they had to hope they dodge a Thunder Wave and close combat my Urshifu and hope that knocks out. So they go for Sandsear Storm, which does a bit more damage than the Earth Power, but still not enough to take the knockout, as I do get the close combat off into the Landorus, and I am able to knock out the Landorus. So at this point, I'm feeling pretty good about my spot, because now my Dragonite is in a fantastic spot to win the game. So Landorus goes down, it's Urshifu versus Urshifu and my Dragonite, and yeah, at this point, I'm like, do I even have to go for Scale Shot, or can I just go for Extreme Speed to win the game? And I'm like pretty sure that I could just go for Extreme Speed to win the game. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to see the Extreme Speed damage first. There's no Terastallization that I really have to go for here in this game. So I'm like, okay, let's go for the Extreme Speed into the Urshifu first, because if I Scale Shot first time and then just miss a bunch of attacks, I think it's not worth it. But yeah, so they go for Aqua Jet into the Urshifu to take the knockout, which makes sense. And now it's Dragonite versus the Urshifu 1v1, but I know that 2 Extreme Speed KOs, and there's like no way they can KO my multi-scale Dragonite. They go for the Protect here with their Urshifu, trying to stall out Extreme Speed power points to hope that I maybe, if they get multiple Protects, or if I didn't power point up my Extreme Speeds all the way, maybe they have something. So I just spam Extreme Speed. There's like really no reason for me not to, because 2 Extreme Speeds, as you can see, knocks out the Urshifu. They go for certain strikes, and I'm like, yeah, that's really not doing any damage. That's really not doing any damage. I think I might even, I definitely live another. I think I go down to 2 though. So all I have to do is go for Extreme Speed, or do I even go for Scale Shot, reading an Extreme Speed? But then I realized I have 5 power points. They have to get 5 Protects in a row. It's like, I'd rather just go for the Extreme Speed 5 times, and if they get the triple, then I guess I go for like a Scale Shot afterward. But yeah, I just go for like Extreme Speed. They don't get a double Protect even, so I am going to be able to securely knock out the Urshifu with Extreme Speed, and very nice. So endgame Thundurus was actually like really nice here, because I didn't lead Thundurus. Thundurus wouldn't have been like the greatest lead. It would have been fine, I guess, because I could threaten Thunder Waves and Eerie Impulses, but across the board, it was actually really good in that late game. Slowing down that Landorus, and actually like the Wall Bolt Storms were nice, which was pretty solid, and forcing the Urshifu to take out the knockout into the Thundurus, which was huge. All right, we have Matt here with a 1687 rating, running Smeargle for Rigraff, Cornerstone Ogerpon, Torkoal, Urshifu, and Fluttermane. And I'm like, okay, this is gonna definitely be an interesting Trick Room matchup. It should probably be like Special Attack Booster Fluttermane. It looks really similar to the Marco team, except it has Smeargle and Urshifu over Incineroar and Ursaluna. I'm like, Dragonite Tinglu should be fine, because most of the Smeargles on this kind of team don't run max speed. They run like Decorate stuff with the Smeargle, and I'm like, okay, if it's not max speed, I can Scale Shot to Smeargle, hopefully get a 5-hitter. I don't know if 4-hitter actually knocks out like max defense Smeargle. I think you need a 5-hitter. So I'm just gonna leave Tinglu plus the Dragonite. I think it's pretty safe for the most part. Thundurus here, I'm like, is it even worth bringing like against Farigiraf? I do decide to bring it, because I'm like, okay, if I get rid of Giraffe, I can Eerie Impulse the special attackers, which is nice. And then I bring Gouging Fire because it's able to KO the Fluttermane, as well as like resist the Torkoal Eruption, which is pretty big. So that's the game plan here. Urshifu could have been okay, but I don't think it's necessary. But yeah, we're gonna see Farigiraf plus the for Rigraff, and I'm like, okay, this is definitely an interesting lead. And I'm like, okay, there could be a Torkoal switch. They could just go for Helping Hand if they have Helping Hand on a Giraffe. I'm like, I don't really mind if Trick Room goes up because like their biggest offensive threat is the Torkoal, which is I have multiple Pokemon that resist it and I have Vessel Ruin. So usually on these teams they run Specs Flutter Mane. We saw it was not Booster, which makes sense because it is a Sun team. But here I'm just like, okay, I'm going to double protect the Scout. I almost went for like a potential Iron Head in the Flutter Mane and Protect here. The reason I decided to go for a double Protect in the end was like, you could Dazzling Gleam. I think the Terra on the Tinglu is just super obvious here, but I feel like I'm just going to play it safe no matter what and just go for a double Protect. There's not really a reason to risk anything here. I did almost debate about going aggressive though, so I do go for a double Protect to scout for like what the Flutter Mane would lock itself into, and it's Shadow Ball instead. And I'm like, okay, they went for the D-Knight too, so I'm like, okay, you Shadow Ball the Dragonite, you are probably choiced for sure. Maybe expected to Terra Steel Iron Head into the Flutter Mane turn 1, but like that would be like very vulnerable to the Torkoal. So they went for Hyper Voice as well, and I'm like, okay, I'm in a pretty decent spot here. And I'm like, okay, do I want to try to KO the Giraffe or do I want to double up the Flutter Mane? I'm just gonna go for Earthquake plus Scale Shot because if the Flutter Mane's locked into Shadow Ball, I don't think I have anything to worry about. I have Multi-Scale plus Vessel of Ruin, and Tinglu naturally resists the Shadow Ball, and it's really great because I don't have to Terra, so I don't have to worry about like Psychic from the Graph doing a lot of damage. All I have to do is go for damage, and even if they double the Giraffe, it's not like the Flare Mane's doing crazy amounts of damage. As you can see from the Shadow Ball, not really anything with the Multi-Scale and the Vessel Ruin. So I get a Scale Shot off into Farigiraf, and this is doing some pretty good damage. And I'm like, if I get a 5-hitter, I should KO, but if it's Citrus Berry like they normally do, then that's fine as well. Like getting the damage in Giraffe is pretty big, so I can get the priority moves, especially for my Thundurus, as I mentioned earlier. I do get the Earthquake off into the Giraffe and the Flutter Mane, and as you can see, a lot of damage, and they go for Hyper Voice. And I'm like, okay, I'm in a pretty good spot. If it's Speed Boost or Flutter Mane, it probably, or if it's Special Attack Boost or Flutter Mane, it should underspeed my Dragonite, and we just saw I outspeed the Giraffe. So here I'm like, do I want to greed this and potentially go for another Scale Shot into the Giraffe so I can outspeed something if I needed to? But then I'm like, oh, not really. It's not really worth it. I'm just going to go for Iron Head, and I'm going to go for the Earthquake because my opponent doesn't have much I could switch into. And if they want to Terra the Giraffe at like 2%, I'm like, sure, by all means, you can Terra Flying your Giraffe. That is completely fine by me. I'm just going to go for Earthquake and Iron Head and just try to brute force it from here. So I'm like, I'm in a pretty good spot. My Dragonite's just really nicely positioned, as well as my Tinglu. I haven't taken much damage, as you can see. I get the KO and Flutter Mane with Iron Head, and I do outspeed it, and I am going to be able to get a Earthquake off into the Giraffe. So here I'm like, okay, pretty nice. What is your final back to? Because this is going to be kind of important. So they are going to reveal the Urshifu, which is going to be the Dark Urshifu, and is also going to reveal the Ogerpon. I'm like, okay, this could actually be a little bit spooky. So no wonder they weren't setting up the Trick Room. My Thundurus is actually kind of useless here. It doesn't really do too much. And the gouging is like, it's fine, I suppose. But yeah, it's not ideal, of course. So here I'm just debating about whether I go for a Scale Shot immediately or do I go for like an Iron Head here. And I decide that I think I'm just going to go for an Iron Head. And I was like debating about just EQing because I'm like, do you go for the close combat or not? But do I really want them to get a double knockout here? And I'm like, okay, maybe it's better that I just go for the Terra Poison and I just go for the Earthquake. They have to read the Terra first, and then they probably have to double it up, I think. So regardless, I think it's fine for me to go for this play. And the Cornerstone actually does go for the Terrassalization. So they Terrassalize the Ogerpon, which is kind of suspecting me to think that they went for Ivy Cudgel here, but I don't know into which slot. So that's kind of a big thing, because they might be doubling up the Tinglu, and if they double up the Tinglu, yeah, it gets a bit awkward here. But we'll see, because I do get the Terra Poison off with the Tinglu, which is very helpful in just being able to resist close combat and Power Whips if they went for it. And I do go for the Iron Head, and I saw the HP bar drop, and I'm like, okay, I got a crit. I don't know who they targeted, and it was still fine regardless, like, either way. But yeah, that obviously makes it pretty much unwinnable for my opponent at this point. while it was still kind of a bad position for them. They did go for a Wicked Blow, so they might have went for the Ivy Cudgel double up into Tinglu. If they didn't, they were losing to Ironhead EQ. They could have KO'd the Dragonite, but like then it's like Urshifu versus three other Pokemon. And if they did go for like an Ivy Cudgel and a Tinglu, like the Ogerpon's weakened, so it's not like terrible for me. I still have like chances to be able to win with my Gouging Fire. So regardless, the crit just like guarantee secures me the game, while I think without the crit it was still an uphill battle for my opponent. But yeah, they just robbed them of any chance to win. So I was able to win there and then park it for the GC, because at this point I still had 3 battles that I could do, but I was pretty tired at this point, still being sick and all. And we finished 36th place overall in the Grand Challenge. I can't lie that this Grand Challenge is definitely a lot of ups and downs. The first day, I do have VODs of it, by the way. They're in my live stream playlist, so if you do want to check out, you know, the day 1 and the day 2, because I did play it live on stream, you can go check it down below. But let me just say, day 1 was struggling. Like, I was really feeling from the sick, I believe, and was just not playing well that day. And day 2, I don't think I was playing super well. Day 3 even, like, I don't think I played like crazy well, but overall, like, I think I got more used to the team and how it kind of functioned. And yeah, like, it was actually able to place pretty well. I would recommend using for another Grand Challenge again, but yeah, because otherwise, let me just say the Dundoza match been close to you. It's just like something, unless you add Haze to this team, like, I do think the Dundoza matchup is super rough. But yeah, pretty cool stuff. It was really awesome to see. Thundurus, you know, was able to do some stuff. I think it was less used than I thought it would be. The Tinglu was still pretty good with the Gouging Fire. Gouging Fire, Chien-Pao, D-Knight is really strong. Spadef, Urshifu was actually pretty good. Safety Goggles was like sometimes an item, sometimes it wasn't. But yeah, really cool team that Francesco and Pato were able to use at the European International Championship, both of them making top cut. And yeah, it was a really strong team, and I hope we were able to feature, like, at least I was able to showcase, because I feel like on my live streams I wasn't really showcasing how well this team could do. But of course, go check them out down below in the description. And of course, if you want to check out more VGC content, make sure to subscribe to the channel as always.